Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is a very special one this week because we have a very special guest. You can see down there. And so, basically, I think those numbers are going to go up, aren't they? Yeah, there's 9 already. Here we go. So hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This isn't going to be exactly the same as normal because normally there's a lot of waffle and there's a lot of we don't even get going for about an hour. So we're not going to do that because I'm sure Mark's time is quite pressing. But we have Marc Scott Zicree here, and I first met him through the Twilight Zone Companion, and we were discussing a while ago. Me and Dave were saying about doing a Twilight Zone themed episode because we're both going through every episode. I'm doing these videos. I've done 19 videos so far, so I'm almost at the end of season 4. But you haven't seen them yet because they're all scheduled up to 2025. But I've been watching all these episodes. I've seen 112 or something since Christmas, so I'm a bit obsessed. But Dave's been watching them as well. And we were going to do an episode on the Twilight Zone, and then I just thought I'm going to just reach out, see if Mark's up for chatting. Sure. And it turns out he is. So he's here. He's also the creator of the Blu-ray that I'm watching to do these videos. So this has been a big part of my life, and it pretty much set me up for science fiction and fantasy when I was a kid. But now I'm looking at all 156 episodes in detail. And I'll tell you what, Mark, sometimes I disagree with you about an episode.
Yes. Well, one of the things when I wrote the book, and by the way, the 3rd edition is now out. I expanded the book by 100 pages, 500 new photographs, links to audio and video, just to let you know. Yes, the 3rd edition. So I actually like the cover of the 2nd edition better, but it's more literally eye-catching. But but my whole idea when I was writing the book was I would give the facts about the episode, about how it came to be and all of that. Then I would state my opinion. But I didn't need everyone to agree with my opinion. And in fact, in some cases, my opinion has changed over the years as I've gotten input from people about which episodes meant the most to them. So it's been a journey. But one of the things with my deal with Rod Serling's widow, Carol, was that she gave me access to everything Rod had and everything from the archives. But she did not have editorial control over me. So in other words, I was free to say what I wanted to say on any given topic.
Yeah, that's awesome. And because what I do is I take these notes in here, and then I put a little asterisk to my favourites, and then I put something else, some other symbol, can't what it is, about the ones I don't like. Yeah. And now the 112 or something. There's only 5, I think it is now, 5 that I didn't like. So I'm much more forgiving than you are.
Yes. But again, I mean, on average, every episode of the Twilight Zone is interesting in one way or another. Even the dogs. Yeah. Not to disparage Olive, but they're so well acted and so well directed. The music is so great, and they shot most of them on a lot of MGM, which was the great studio of the golden age of movies. I mean, so even something like "Come Wander with Me" or the one with Carol Burnett that had a laugh track and then track off, and it doesn't work either way. It's they're still interesting as curiosities.
Yeah. I think the Carol Burnett one was really, really good, actually. I was really impressed with it. It was quite unpredictable, I thought. But the season 4 ones are obviously the most contentious ones because that's when it went to an hour long. And so often I think they're good episodes, but they're just too long. If you take 10 minutes off, they'd be really good. But there's a couple that still work as full. There's one, what was it? I'm trying to remember at some point which one it was that needed all the little beats to it that I thought worked as an hour long. But I think the worst ones are really good. But there's tons of things to sort of bounce off because you also wrote for the new Twilight Zone in the 80s one, didn't you?
Yes, and I've written tons and tons of TV and books, and I have my own studio now, and there's I've definitely followed my own star over the years. I wrote the Twilight Zone book right out of college because I wanted to learn how to write and produce great television, and there was no classes in that. There was no way to learn it. So I thought, well, I'll write a book about one of the greatest shows ever made, if not the greatest show ever made, and maybe I can learn how to emulate them. And that was really, really, really important, So I'm I'm thrilled that I got to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So Mark, can Can I ask you something about what you just said? Because
course.
I noticed what I'm doing is now, like as I'm watching through the episode, I watch the episode and then
Yeah.
I look at your little piece on that episode,
Mhm.
and like there was one where you had made a comment that it was the episode "The Whole Truth." Is that
Yes.
the name of the car salesman one?
Yeah, it's one of the 6 video ones.
You
Yeah.
had made a comment about that, about how they had tried to make the setting look like a real car lot, but it didn't
Yeah.
fly, and so
Right.
so is that I think you had just mentioned this. Is that pretty much all the sets, like, well, because a lot of them do appear outside, but they're all
Yes,
like
yes.
reconstructed on that studio in that studio?
No, basically, there were, as I mentioned a moment ago, there were 156 episodes, but at the beginning of season 2, the show had been a little bit over budget, not insanely so. They were made for about $80,000 an episode, shot in over 3 days, and each. And so, in an attempt to try to cut the budget, they decided to try an experiment of doing 6 episodes on what was a new technology that was black and white videotape at the time. This is around 1961, and they directed them almost like live TV shows. But and they were shot at CBS Television City, where a lot of live TV was being done around then. And the problem was that they couldn't shoot outside because of the technology, the way live TV and taped TV worked at that point. All the other episodes, all 150 other episodes, were shot on 35 millimeter film, and that they could go anywhere, do anything. It was just like any movie in that
Oh,
way.
okay.
So they shot in Death Valley, they shot at Lone Pine, they shot on the back lot of MGM. They, and if MGM didn't have something they needed, there might be another studio that would let them shoot there. They shot the Buster Keaton episode, I think, was at the Hal Roach Studios or Max Sennett Studios. It was, they had access to everything, and so it was only a limitation in those 6 episodes, and
Okay.
and that one's particularly kind of glaring.
I was amazed reading your book. I've read it over and over again over the years, but reading it again this time, watching the episodes, I was amazed at how many props were from Forbidden Planet.
Yes,
Just tons of stuff.
yes, and I learned that lesson from Twilight Zone, which is terrific. Because Twilight Zone was shot at MGM, they had access to every prop, every costume, every set, every backlot item that MGM had ever used. And so you see a ton of stuff from Forbidden Planet. You see some of the Krell sets, and you see even the car, the futuristic car they have in Forbidden Planet. They have Robbie the robot. They have the uniforms. See, they just reused that to a fairly well, and then they shot on the Andy Hardy Street and Meet Me in St. Louis, and just on and on and on and on. And when I was a producer on Sliders, knowing what Rod had done, I said to the powers that be, do we have access? We were shooting at Universal, and I said, do we have access to everything Universal has ever made in terms of props, costume sets? And they said, that's funny. No one's ever asked us that. We'll check. And they came back and they said, with a very few exceptions, yes. And so I was able to use stuff from Jurassic Park and 12 Monkeys and Time Cop and Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. It gave us a lot of production value. And now that I'm doing Space Command, I do the exact same thing. I acquire props and sets and costumes from many, many high-budget science fiction TV shows and movies that I then add to what we're building freestanding, and it gives us much more production value. So it's Rod taught me very well.
Oh,
Does that
very
change the
cool.
writing? If you're like, does that, like, say you're doing that for when you were doing it for Sliders, did that give you ideas for like some of the plots you could do?
Very much so. And for instance, our standing sets, I think, were on stage 3, and I had heard that, well, the TV series Time Cop had just been canceled, and their sets were on the next stage over, and they were just going to tear them down. And I went on to those sets, and they were astonishing. So I immediately came up with a storyline called Slide Cage that was about this sort of prison where you slide to this alternate Earth that has a methane atmosphere, and the Cro-Mags and the humans are trapped there because they can't get out, and so they have to form an alliance to be able to escape. And so I immediately, within like 10 minutes, thought how that could be utilized. I'd never even seen the TV show Time Cop or the movie, but the sets presented themselves to me. And so Jerry O'Connell directed that episode as well as starred in it. And so I walked Jerry through and the production team through the sets and said, this is where I envision things being staged. And it's a terrific looking episode. So I was very lucky.
I think it's a really, would you say, Dave, it's quite an underrated series, Sliders?
Sliders? Oh yeah, sure. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a variable show because of like seasons, for most of the seasons, particularly season 3, it kind of went downhill and was just kind of movie ripoff of the week. And then when I was brought aboard to basically fix the show and get it to work because it was a great premise and a great cast. And so I said, we're not going to be ripping off movies anymore. And because they would do, like, one week would be their Jurassic Park ripoff, and then another week would be their Twister ripoff, and so forth. And so I said, no, this is a premise that's terrific, that's wonderful. Let's really explore the full possibility of it. And so that's what we did for season 4. And I was a producer on all of those episodes and wrote. I'm credited, I think, with 4 or 5 of them, and was sort of instrumental in a lot of elements on about 19 of them, of the 22.
Did you put like some of the long-running kind of plots, the threads, in?
Well, when I was hired, the showrunner told me, David Peckinpah told me that they would have the Cro-Mags, these sort of strange, Klingon-esque characters, as a running threat that wouldn't be in every episode, but would be pursuing Quinn and his team throughout. And that gave us sort of a spine to hang some stories on, but also it gave us enough leeway to do stories that were completely unconnected to them. And so as a result, I could come up with stories like, there's one I wrote called World Killer, where because when Quinn turned on his device that he invented, it slid him and his friends to other parallel Earths, and they were kind of trying to get back home. And I thought, well, what if there was a parallel Earth where Quinn instead pulls the switch on his machine and suddenly everyone else in the world disappears? And he thinks he's just disintegrated everybody, but what he's really done is slid them to a parallel Earth. So when our guys show up, they say to this duplicate of Quinn, they say, well, no, you just sent them away. Let's go to where they were sent and find out what's going on and bring them back. And so they slide to that alternate world, and in a moment, 5 years earlier or 4 years earlier, the population doubled. So it's basically a dying Earth because it can't sustain that many people. So our guys have to decide whether or not to slide half the population back, because in the interim, people have built families, people have made lives, and it's all or nothing. And ultimately they decide to slide half the population back, because that way there'll be 2 worlds that can survive rather than 1 world that's dying. And it was about responsibility, taking responsibility for what you create and what you do, your actions. And it was super fun.
One of the things that I noticed when I watched one of your videos today about your fantastic video about Ray Bradbury. I've seen it a couple of times, but I watched it again today. And he said about the whole thing about people recycling stories and how science fiction's full of, a bit of that, bit of this, bit of that, and all that. And I was going to talk to you about that in a different way later, but just as you're talking about Sliders, did you find that you had to kind of think about it yourself? Like, is this too similar to this, or did you have to do that?
Well, I have a really, not just with Twilight Zone, but Star Trek and the whole genre. I as you mentioned, I have a YouTube channel called Mr. Sci-Fi, and we just hit 100,000 subscribers and millions of hits. And I've been a fan of science fiction since I was like a kid, little 5, 6, 7. And so I know all the stuff, I know what's been written. And so I'm very aware of working very hard to come up with stories I've never seen before. And I learned that lesson from Harlan Ellison, of course, who did City on the Edge of Forever and many, many other great works. Yeah. And but it's funny, because when I was story editing Friday the 13th, the series, we would take freelance pitches every day, and writers would come in and say things like, well, there's this ventriloquist and there's this dummy who's come alive and it's trying to take over from him. And I said, boy, you're pitching to the wrong guy.
Yeah, we know that story.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but yeah, you always try and figure out, what am I trying to say that's true and emotionally, resonant to my life, and also what haven't I seen before? What's cool that but the whole of science fiction is like a jazz improvisation. It's people riffing off each other. So, for instance, Heinlein's Starship Troopers, well, The Forever War by Joe Haldeman is very much a response to Heinlein's book, because Joe was one of my teachers at Clarion, and he had been through the Vietnam War, and Heinlein, of course, Heinlein was in the Naval Academy, but ill health forced him out of the military to where so he never really fought in a war, and so
Yeah.
Joe Haldeman wants to say
There's
no.
there's a thread of pacifism in Joe Haldeman stuff, isn't there?
Yes, very much so, because he really went through the experience, whereas Heinlein, who was very much kind of, well, that's also interesting because when they did the Starship Troopers movie, I just met Casper Van Dien at a convention a few days ago, and Paul Verhoeven said, well, this is a Nazi science fiction story, so why don't we just like go for it and do it as a satire? Because he had been through World War II as a kid, so he'd seen dead bodies. All the mayhem that's in Starship Troopers is him basically saying this is what it really is like. This is body parts hit all over the place and blood, and it's and he takes it to the extreme because he had that personal experience of war.
Yeah, it's like an anti Heinlein film, isn't it?
Yes, very much. Yeah. A lot of science fiction fans didn't understand and they hated it, and I think it's great. It's one of my favorite films, and just really, really wonderful. So, and my hope is to have Casper Van Dien in some of the stuff I'm doing in the near future. So we shall see what.
Cool. Sorry, Dave, I keep talking.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
I was going to ask about like how Harlan Ellison was the creative consultant, wasn't he, on Babylon 5?
Yes, he was, and also Harlan was on the writing staff of the new Twilight Zone when they brought the show back in the 80s. That was an amazing writing staff. Harlan Ellison and Rockne O'Bannon, who went on to create Farscape, and George R.R. Martin. It was on and on. It was Alan Brennard and so forth.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Brilliant stuff in the 80s one. Yeah. I'm going to look at the 80s one as well once I've done the original ones. But I was going to ask you about how you felt knowing what you said in that video about the Terminator story, because obviously Harlan Ellison won his battle and got his credit on the Terminator, didn't he? Because of those two Outer Limit stories. And it's just an interesting one because I don't know. I think it's fair enough that he won, but I'm not convinced because I watched the two Outer Limits episodes and I thought, I don't know, it might be a little bit of a stretch.
Well, it's funny because again, science fiction is always building upon what has gone before, and so we all watch the same shows. I always joke that all of us science fiction fans have the exact same apartment. It's like the same stuff, the Robbie the Robot toy or the whatever. But H.G. Wells wrote a time machine story, and then so you could say that every time machine story since is riffing off H.G. Wells, So, but the thing with what Harlan says, he did two great Outer Limits episodes, Soldier and the Demon with a Glass Hand, and and there are elements that are similar in Terminator. The funny thing, of course, is that James Cameron denied that he was inspired by Harlan, but when I met him years later, I said, well, I'm the author of the Twilight Zone Companion, and James Cameron said to me, I always prefer the Outer Limits. Oh my God! Smoking gun.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. So, but again, Terminator definitely does create its own storyline. It's original enough to where it's not just ripping off Harlan, but clearly it is inspired by Harlan, and Harlan was always very litigious and.
Yeah. I always think it's worth just mentioning people or acknowledging it, but not necessarily having to pay them, if you know what I mean. I always think a bit frustrated that Robert Sheckley never gets credit for the kind of battle royale kind of concept.
Yes. The seventh victim. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was made into the 10th victim, that Italian movie with Marcello Mastroianni. But the thing is, it's like Hollywood is very plagiaristic, and sometimes it's not even deliberate, or at least deliberate on the part of the writers. For instance, there's that big question of whether, Babylon 5, whether Deep Space Nine ripped off Babylon 5. Well, but the way it would work is like Joe Straczynski would go in and pitch it to Paramount, let's say, to some executives. They would say no. Then they have a meeting with Star Trek executives and say, we were just thinking about like a space station. So the Star Trek executives have no idea that the Paramount execs have just heard a pitch and they're processing it, they're passing it along. So they're inadvertently ripping off Joe Straczynski, but not deliberately so. And again, this is all just a supposition. But and realistically, if you're doing a space-going show, you only really have a very few choices. You set it on an alien planet, set it on a space station, or set it on a spaceship. I mean, really, it's like there's not a lot of choices. So, but again, I'm glad that both DS9. I'm the only writer who wrote for both DS9 and Babylon 5, and they were very different animals and very interesting and wonderful in their own ways, but completely different. They aren't. You would never mistake one for the other.
No, this is my favorite version of Star Trek, actually.
Mm.
And your episode, we need to talk about your episode in a minute. Your episode is like ridiculous. I watched it again. Every single time I watch it, it makes me cry. It's
Yeah.
so powerful. It's so that speech at the end.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But Dave, did you look like you had something to ask, Dave? I don't want to like take over. Did you have something to ask?
Well, I didn't want to veer off. Yeah, of course I got questions, but I guess get the impression we're just going to kind of be bouncing all over the place, right?
Yes.
So I might as well just jump right in. We'll get back to the Star Trek thing, right? So, Mark, when you were so I think you said you were 21, right, when you wrote this?
When I started, it took 5 years, and I sold my first short story when I was 19. I was an art major at UCLA. I'd had gallery shows when I was a teenager of my artwork and photography, and then I went to the Clarion Writers Workshop, which was the leading writing workshop, science fiction writing workshop in the country. Sold my first short story, came back, finished my art degree at UCLA, and then by then I knew I wanted to be a writer producer in TV, and so I jumped into the Twilight Zone Companion. But at the time I took a writing course by the great Theodore Sturgeon, and his teaching assistant was a young man named Michael Reeves, and we became friends. And Michael was writing for animation, and he asked me if I'd like to come in as a collaborator. So that's how I ended up writing for Smurfs and He-Man and Super Friends and Real Ghostbusters and all that stuff. So So it's kind of, so I was doing both the Twilight Zone book and writing for animation sort of at the same time, and then so it was 5 years to the month from when I started the book, the Twilight Zone book, to when it came out, and it's been in print ever since, and I'm very, very glad that I took that chance, and went for it.
Yeah. So was that like was your? I guess I was wondering. That's really what I was wondering about was your motivation behind this book back in the early, what was it, 80?
Yeah.
You started in, so when did you start it? That was 80.
I started in about 77, in 1977. Yeah, I did the bulk of the interviews in 77, 78. Other than Rod Serling and one of the other writers, Charles Beaumont, and a director named Montgomery Pittman, who had passed away. It was only 2 years after Serling's death that I started working on the book. So his house, exactly as he'd left it in Pacific Palisades. Even his dog was there, and there was one room with just the Emmys and the Hugo Awards and all that stuff, and his office back of the house by the swimming pool was there. It was really phenomenal. And up in the attic were all these volumes of clippings from every newspaper article, every magazine article ever done about Rod from 1956 on. So it was just great. And but the real impetus, the real spark that started that whole thing moving was that when I was a kid, my three favorite shows were Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, and Star Trek, the original versions of those three shows. And I started noticing that the guys writing those shows were the same guys writing the novels and short stories I was reading. Harlan Ellison, Ted Sturgeon, Richard Matheson, Charles Beaumont, Ray Bradbury, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I thought, my gosh, these, and so my heroes were the writers, not the actors. And as soon as I was old enough, I read the making. I went onto the Star Trek set when I was a kid. I was there for the last episode they ever shot, Turnabout Intruder. I met Nichelle Nichols when I was 10, when the show was on the air, and 50 years later, we cast her in Space Command. It was so wonderful. I brought the scrapbook that I'd kept when I was 10 years old with the photo she'd signed to me and the letters she'd written me, and it was great. And
that's amazing.
But as soon as I was old enough, when I was a teenager, I started going to science fiction conventions and meeting the writers from those shows. Harlan Ellison and David Gerald and George Clayton Johnson, and so George Clayton Johnson had written Kick the Can and Nothing in the Dark and A Game of Fool, great episodes of Twilight Zone, and he also wrote the first episode of Star Trek that ever aired, the Salt Vampire one, and so I just started talking to George, and that sort of started me thinking that I could write a book about Twilight Zone, and he was the first person I interviewed, and then he connected me with other people and other people and other people, and off we went.
He also co-wrote Logan's Run, didn't he, with William F. Nolan?
William F. Nolan, exactly, and in fact, when I first met George, around 1975 was just about when Logan's Run was coming out, and I have a photo that I took of George when outside where the wall of MGM had this enormous billboard at street level, and his name was in letters about this high. So I got a photo of him standing by his name on the Logan's Run billboard. So that was great fun. He was a wonderful man.
Oh, that's awesome. Can I just bouncing off that, because you said that Theodore Sturgeon was one of your teachers, and I know that in one of your other videos you mentioned that Damon Knight was as well.
Yes. Well, I was hugely lucky because so many of the writers from the golden age of science fiction were alive, and science fiction, unlike other genres, has a tradition of the fans becoming the writers and then passing on the torch of mentoring. And Ray Bradbury was a great example of that, because his mentors were Richard the people he mentored were Richard Matheson, George Clayton Johnson, and Charles Beaumont, and he's the one who recommended them to Twilight Zone. I mean, it's phenomenal. And so when I went to Clarion is basically a 6-week science fiction writing workshop. At the time, it was held at Michigan State University. A class of 25 students would go there, live in the dormitories for 6 weeks, and each week a different famous science fiction writer would come and live with you in the dorms, and you would write stories, and they would critique them, and it was great. And so the 6 writers who we had were Joe Haldeman, Damon Knight, Kate Wilhelm, Samuel R. Delaney, Roger Zelazny, and who was the 6th? Gene Wolfe. So that's just that's like, the all-stars, it's how could you do better? And then when I came back to UCLA, and I sold a short story to Damon Knight. And Damon Knight, of course, is the writer who wrote the short story To Serve Man that was made into the classic Twilight Zone episode. So Damon bought my first short story that I'd actually written when I was 18 in a writing class at UCLA, or an English class at UCLA. And ironically, that short story is still as relevant as ever. It's called, the assignment was to write a satire. And so I wrote a satire where Disney takes over the world. So the world becomes literally Disney World, and they thaw Walt Disney out of cryogenic, suspended animation to show him the world that he now basically owns.
You're literally a clairvoyant.
Yes. So it's a very fun story, and I actually did a reading of it on Mr. Sci-Fi, and so Damon bought that, and it told me that it was $50, but that told me that somebody would pay money for my writing, and so that really set me on the course. And so my first check as a writer was $50, and my second check as a writer was $20,000, which was for the Twilight Zone Companion. And it's been wonderful since then. It's been really wonderful.
I was going to ask you if sorry, I was just bouncing off that. I was going to ask you if those 2 teachers were specific about TV writing, or did you have to find that path yourself?
Mainly, it's funny. Damon and I, he was not really a hands-on mentor to me. It was only the 6 weeks of the class. I'm still very friendly with Joe Haldeman and so forth. So, but Ted Sturgeon was very much a mentor to me, and we became close friends. And he, in fact, over my shoulder there, if you see, there's a framed photo of sort of a sagacious-looking guy, and up toward the top in a sort of a burgundy mat, and that's a photo I took of Ted Sturgeon that was on 2 of his books as his author's photo. I took that photo when I was 19. Ted was very much a mentor, and he had written for television as well as for books. Of course, a brilliant writer. And then, of course, George Clayton Johnson and Harlan Ellison was a huge inspiration to me in terms of writing for television, because Harlan basically said, you've got to take a truth from your life, and you've got to do a story that no one has ever seen before. And certainly City on the Edge of Forever is that, because in every episode of TV I'd ever seen before that, the hero saves the girl. And in City on the Edge of Forever, he throws her under a truck. So
you say that. I've just watched the season 4 episode that made me wonder if Harlan Ellison was influenced by it. It's about they go, it's no time like the past. It's that one where he goes back in time and he has to let the children die. They have to burn in that church, the school. They have to burn in the school, and he has to let it happen.
Yeah, and again, that's an old trope from science fiction about, okay, what do you do? And there's a short story I was thinking of writing where this guy has one shot to go back in time and change one small thing, and he has a certain artist that he felt got really treated badly during his lifetime. He never achieved success. He just was struggling his whole life, never knew what the future would bring, and he was, very, very sad and lonely, and sometimes even homeless. And he goes back in time and convinces the art academy to accept this artist as a student, and then he becomes a famous artist. And throughout the story, we're thinking that the artist is Van Gogh, and then we ultimately learn that the artist is actually Hitler. So it's like, because if Hitler's first career was artist, and if he had succeeded, if he had gotten the attention he longed for, he never would have started on a different path, shall we say. But so so time travel has a lot of fun twists and turns, and but Sitting on the Edge of Forever was really a huge influence on me, and then these people became friends and mentors, and it was just spectacular. And but that was the fun part, because what Harlan told me or taught me was to like when I would go into pitch to Star Trek, the challenge was to come up with something I'd never seen before, and I was able to do that several times with Trek and with Next Gen, and then DS9, and then even Star Trek New Voyages, where I did the episode with George Takei, and that was phenomenal too. So, and that's on Mr. Sci-Fi, so one can actually watch that. It's on the landing page. It's this episode that I wrote and co-wrote with Michael Reeves, the guy who got me in animation, and he was also a writer on Star Trek: The Next Generation, and George Takei's in it, and my friend Christina Moses, who most recently was a lead on A Million Little Things on ABC, and Grace Lee Whitney's in it, Majel Barrett's in it. It was amazing, and it was nominated for the Hugo and the Nebula, which is pretty amazing because there was no network or studio, so it was like, it was just us kids making our own Star Trek.
Yeah. Because I noticed as well that you just I was watching a video earlier where you were talking about Mira Furlan.
Yes.
And the fact that she was cast in Space Command, and sadly she died just after we filmed it.
It was
really sad.
It's such a terrible irony, because it was during COVID, so she went back home to the Hollywood Hills to kind of shelter in place, and she got bit by a mosquito and got West Nile virus, and it killed her. She died, and some people are very vulnerable to that. So it wasn't COVID, and so the irony is, if not for the COVID pandemic, she'd still be with us. And I really wish she was. She was a dear soul. We got to utilize her in the first 2-hour story of Space Command, and in one episode we did during the pandemic called Ripple Effect, and also in the prequel, which is a radio play and a graphic novel that we combined into an animatic. So, but my intention was for her and Doug Jones to be what I called viewpoint characters over the 200 years of the show, because the show follows 5 generations of 4 families over a 200-year span. So sadly, we had to rewrite her and write a heroic ending for her in the episode we're completing now. So, and fortunately, we were able to do that. But it was heartbreaking, and she was a phenomenal actress and just a wonderful person, and I'm very blessed that I got to know her.
She was one of those people with like amazing screen presence, wasn't she? I mean,
yes.
As soon as she appeared in Lost, we're like, oh my god, it's Mira Furlan, and
I first met Mira when we had the wrap party for the first season of Babylon 5, and it was at a bowling alley, and I just, I was determined to work with her again because I thought she was so terrific, and it was 20 years later that I finally got to write the role in Space Command for her, and I'm so glad that I did, so glad. And with the way I pitched it to her, I took her out to lunch, and I said, I don't know a lot about your character yet, but I do know she's a xenoarchaeologist. She has a fiery but loving relationship with her grown daughter, and she is not defined by a man. And she said, I'm in. Good.
Yeah, you worked with Bill Mooney as well, didn't you? Is that right?
Oh, say that again?
You worked with Bill Mooney as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, I've known Bill Mooney since I was 7. I was a big fan of Lost in Space, and before Star Trek came on, and one day I was homesick. I was 7 years old. I was homesick with a cold. I was in my pajamas, and my mom was a working mom, so I was home alone. I was a latchkey kid, and I got this inspiration to take out the phone directory. They used to have these big, thick books that would have everyone's phone number in the city, and so I thought I would call the stars of Lost in Space. So I started dialing. It was a rotary phone. I started dialing the phone, and most people were just people who had the same names but weren't those actors. But there was one Mummy in the phone book, and it was Bill Mooney's dad. And so I called, and his mother answered. I said, "Is Billy there?" And so she said, "Hold on a minute." And then Billy Mooney came to the phone, and I was so nervous, all I could do was blurt out, "Will you be my friend?" and hang up. But when my mom got home, I told her what had transpired, and we called Billy back. And as soon as I was over the cold, I went to his house and traded comic books with him. And then, of course, when I wrote the Twilight Zone Companion, I interviewed him about the amazing episodes he did. And then on Babylon 5, we worked together. So we've known each other all these years.
Yeah.
He's terrific.
Yeah, because I haven't really said yet, but Babylon 5 is a big program for me as well. And I'm a huge fan. But also the thing with Bill Mumy for me as well, because I'm a musician as well, and because I'm a fan of his music, but also I love the fact he really did genuinely inspire me to think I could do more than one thing.
Yes,
because he's a successful actor and a fantastic musician and songwriter who produces his own records. And that to me was a really big inspiration, because I thought, well, I can do other things, but I have to just be one thing.
That's right. And again, I mean, the whole thing, see, all of us who have made a mark in TV or film or books or any of it, we're so blessed. I mean, it's a wonderful thing, particularly when you get to be older, to realize that you've actually created something that will last. There's episodes of Smurfs I wrote when I was, in my early 20s that people are still watching and still enjoying. And I think one of my highest goals was to create my own Star Trek episodes that would be the major ones, that would be the ones, that would really be like City on the Edge of Forever or Trouble with Tribbles. My wife, Elaine, went to college with David Gerald, and she actually read the Trouble with Tribbles in the first draft. And and I said to her, you should have kept that script. It's like she gave it back to David. But again, it's like one episode of one TV. This was something Harlan Ellison taught me, which is one episode of one TV show can change someone's life forever for the better. So it's a huge responsibility and a huge opportunity, and you must not squander it. Every time you go up to bat, you're hitting your A game. You never, ever, ever do less than that on any show. And that's what
you're giving us a fantastic segue into Far Beyond the Stars here.
Sure. That. Well, sure. What would you like to know?
well, I'll tell you, because
how did you possibly write that episode?
Yeah. So we'll get to the comments after, because we haven't said hello to anyone yet. So we'll get to the comments after we've mentioned this show. But it's such an important episode. It's such a unique episode.
Yeah.
There was a big buzz about it when it came out, because I was watching DS9 as it came out. So I was an uber fan when it was coming out. But there was news in the science fiction magazines that this thing was coming out where they're all going to be out of makeup, and it was all going to be set in the past, and it was going to be, I don't know if it was stressed at the time that it was a political episode, but it's an amazing attack on racism.
Yes.
It's just such a fantastic episode. And because the credits say script by the two regular DS9 guys, story by
Ira Baron, Hans Beimler, and then story by me. Yes, and I'll tell you the whole tale of that. I'd
love to know how it happened.
Yeah, and again, I'd already sold to Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'd sold them a First Contact, not the movie, but the episode with that title. And as I said, every time I went to pitch to Trek, I would really try to pitch something fresh and unique, and something that would fit within the Star Trek universe, not violate it, but expand it. And that was always the challenge. And I would generate, I would always put in at least 2 weeks work before pitching to Star Trek, always come in with about 100 storylines. And some would be very fully worked out, beginning, middle, and end. Others would just be little springboards. But, I went in with, everything I could bring to it. And because first of all, when Star Trek: The Next Generation started up, I pitched a number of times, like 5 or 6 times, and every single time I pitched, the producer who I pitched to wanted to buy at least one or more of my pitches and got fired before he could. And so that happened again. It happened with David Gerald. It happened with Tracy Torme. It happened with Bert Armus. It happened again. It's like, Jesus, it was that first season when they had this revolving door of producers getting fired. And so
we're saying that's your fault then? Is that what we're saying?
No, it's certainly like being in your own version of hell, I'll tell you. But but Armin Shimmerman and I had become friends by the time I came up with Far Beyond the Stars. He and I actually, I'd written Beauty and the Beast, and he played a character named Pascal on that show, but we never met each other. And so it was when I saw the pilot of DS9, I thought that Armin was just terrific as Quark. And I was doing a pilot with a Les Landau, who was a director on DS9, and I said, please introduce me to Armin. And so I went on the set of DS9, and Armin was in the full Ferengi thing, and we just hit it off and became really good friends. And from then on, every show I was doing, I would think of a role for Armin. And so with Far Beyond the Stars, the genesis of that was that when I first met Ted Sturgeon, I was very, very interested because he was like a god to me. He was this amazing writer. And yet when I met him, he was very impoverished. He was living in an apartment that it wasn't even a real apartment. It was a converted laundry room that had the door like a 4-foot high door. I hit my head on the lintel of that door, and you'd go into this little dark room, and there on the mantle were the Hugo and Nebula awards, and it's like, and I realized that these guys who created the science fiction, that you wouldn't have a Star Trek or Star Wars if not for those guys who wrote for the love of it, for the magazines back in the day, for a penny a word, 5 cents a word, where if they were lucky, they'd get $1,000 for a novel. I mean, astonishing. Science fiction was not mainstream back when these guys were creating it, and I really wanted to show that world. Harlan Ellison had done a tape where he basically reminisced about that world, writing for those magazines. And one thing he mentioned was that one of the things he would do is there was a certain day that the artists would bring in their cover paintings for the magazines, and the paintings were often done before the stories. And so he would rush there trying to beat the other writers to the office and see immediately come up with something. He would say, that's the most incredible painting I've ever seen, and I have this great idea for a story, and he would get the assignment based on the cover. And he explained that one of the ones he had to do that tap dance with was a woman sunbathing on a New York rooftop, and a giant grasshopper looking over the edge of the roof at her, and he had to pretend that this was like the second coming of Christ or something. And I actually have that issue, which is one of my prized possessions. So initially I knew that it would be all the DS9 characters out of makeup, playing different characters, playing writers back in the 50s. I knew that a lot of the internal makeup of it. And originally I was going to have the main character be Jake because he was an aspiring writer. But then what happened was I pitched it to Hans Beimler, who had been my boss on several series that I'd worked on. And Hans really liked it. But it took him a solid year to convince Ira Behr, who was the showrunner, to buy it. So a year later, I'm sitting in my office at Universal. I'm a producer on Sliders, and the phone rings, and Hans says, I have good news for you. We're buying Far Beyond the Stars. And I said, well, great timing, Hans, because I'm writing 2 episodes of Sliders back to back. And so the only time I even had to meet with the writing staff of DS9 was lunch. And so I went over the hill there used to be a restaurant next to Paramount called Nickadel's. And I went over the hill, and we had lunch, and there was the entire writing staff of DS9. So it was Hans Beimler, Ira Behr, Brian Fuller, just everybody. It was just a phenomenal writing staff. And Ira's contribution, which I think was crucial, was he had the idea of it being about racism. And I thought, this is great, because Star Trek had never taken on racism head on. They had never had any of the lead.
Not like that.
Right, not like that. And I mean, the closest they'd done was the black and white guys, Frank Gorshin, which was just a dreadful episode, really. And but we all knew, and so we started batting it around over lunch. And within that lunch, that hour, the story was nailed down. It was going to be Ben Sisko. It was going to be about him writing a story, him living in Harlem. During the day, he hangs out with the white science fiction writers at the magazine. He writes a white future in which he doesn't exist. And he goes home to Harlem, and his friends say, why are you writing a future that we don't exist in? And ultimately, he has to write his truth, which is the DS9. It's the 1950s version of DS9 on that cover, and the truth of all these races, all these different kinds of people working together, knowing each other, a future of possibility. And the key underlying point of that, there were several things. One was I was showing that world of science fiction, how science fiction came about, that the vast majority of Star Trek fans and Star Wars fans had no knowledge of. They didn't know that was where we came from. But also, it was talking about why is science fiction important? And it's because it can present a future that does not exist yet, but can exist. And it's what Star Trek has done so brilliantly. There are people who became doctors and scientists and astronauts because of Star Trek. There are black astronauts who wouldn't have even thought to apply until Nichelle Nichols was there on the Enterprise, and then, you know, went to bat for NASA to get different races and different genders of people in the astronaut program, and so it creates possibility. So all of us knew at that lunch, we knew that this was going to be one of the great classic episodes. We all were excited, and Ira fast tracked it. He said we're going to air it during sweeps week, which meant it had to go into production almost immediately, and they were going to put a ton of money in it. They were really going to make it a shining star. And so that weekend, I wrote the outline, and it came out really well. And the funny thing is, there were some details I wanted to know. And now Harlan Ellison was extremely embittered against Star Trek because of what had happened with City on the Edge of Forever. When I did the Star Trek episode with George Takei and invited him to the screening, he said, "Look, it's no offense, I can't stand Star Trek." But
still after all these years.
Yes. And but but when I was writing the outline for Far Beyond the Stars, I called Harlan and I said, were there any writers in science fiction back then who were black but who were writing under a white pseudonym? And he said there weren't any writers like that in science fiction. And of course, one of the first great well-known black science fiction writers was Samuel R. Delany, Chip Delany, who was one of my teachers. And I also knew Octavia Butler. She was a student in Ted Sturgeon's class that we were both in at the beginning of our careers. But he said there was one writer in mainstream fiction who was black and who was writing under a white pseudonym, and he told me about the guy. So Harlan was very gracious. The fact that he hated Star Trek but was willing to answer my questions, and I really thought that was a very.
You also put a little nod in there about DC Fontana, didn't you? Because Kira Nerese's Nana Vista's character was disguising herself as a non-gendered person with her name, wasn't it?
Yes, and the only major differences between my outline and the episode as it aired were I originally had Armin as the magazine editor. I was basing that on H.L. Gold, who was the Jewish, short little guy who edited Galaxy magazine, and I was having René Aubergenois as sort of like a blacklisted writer who'd been thrown out of TV and who was like now slumming writing for science fiction in New York. But Ira pointed out, and he was right. Because of the certain vibes of black people with Jewish people, this thing, it might seem anti-Semitic, it might seem problematical. So they said, let's switch those roles and have Renee be the editor and Armin be sort of the blacklisted writer. And then the template, of course, for Renee was John W. Campbell, who was kind of tall and thin and austere, and he was the editor of Astounding, so that worked just fine. And
I think it's their writing style. Their acting style as well. Anyway, those roles. Yes, I think it was well cast from that point of view. Really can I just ask, how did it get to the point where Avery Brooks was directing? Because that's another really interesting aspect of it.
That was a decision at that lunch. Ira said it's going to be Renee. It's going to be Ben. It's not going to be the son. It's going to be Sisko himself. And he said, and also because we're all white, to give it cover, to give it justification, to kind of have it this, because he knew the studio was going to be very frightened of this episode. The studio, to get it approved by Paramount, to be a story in which you're overtly saying cops kill black teenagers. I mean, they murder them. I mean, think about how revolutionary that is. He said, we'll have Avery will direct it. He'll love directing it, and that will give us the black person that's at the forefront of the creative team. And so of course the answer was yes, certainly, of course, he did a great job. So then I did the outline. The outline came out really well. The one other difference was that I had Worf as a boxer who gets beaten to death by the cops instead. Oh, wow. So because I had him, like, he has a sort of secret romance with like a rich white woman, and the cops take that as askance. So I was thinking more of like the Great White Hope kind of thing in that. But Ira changed to baseball, which is okay, but kind of doesn't really have a resonance. It's like, okay. But But then Hans called me and he said, well, we're going to write the script in house. Now I'm a producer on a series, and the outline came out great. So that's not how it's done at all. You don't, I don't get cut off at story, it's like and so I called Ira and I said, look, I want to write Far Beyond the Stars. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, if you quit your job on Sliders, I'll let you write the script. And I actually considered it for about 90 seconds, but I was writing 2 episodes of Sliders back to back, and if I pulled out, they were so screwed. I just couldn't do that to my coworkers, and so I had to say, well, I can't do that, and so Hans and I wrote the script, which followed my outline very specifically, and I knew they were going to do a great job. They were very talented writers, and then when they were shooting the episode. Interestingly enough, 2 studios were shooting my work the same week. They were shooting Slide Cage at Universal on Sliders, and they were shooting Far Beyond the Stars at Paramount the same week. So I actually got a photo of myself in the same clothes the same day, 2 different studios, the casts of both shows. And so I went down to Paramount while they were shooting Far Beyond the Stars, and it was that set that had been made to look like a 1950s office, and I got a photo with the cast, incredibly boring looking photo because it's just like guys in suits, it's like very funny. But so I watched them shooting part of that scene, and I Armin knew me, of course, but Avery Brooks I hadn't met, so he keeps looking at me kind of like, who is this guy? And then at the end of the take, he says, all right, everyone break for lunch. And I walked up to him, I said, hello, Mr. Brooks, my name is Marc Zicree, and I came up with this story. And he said, everybody stop. And he put his arm around me. And he said, say to them what you just said to me. And I said, I came up with the story. And he said, he came up with the story. And they all applauded. And that was pretty great. And then I got the photo with everybody. And it was great. It was really great. And
that's amazing. I can imagine. I don't. Obviously, you know these people. I imagine Avery Brooks is just immensely cool, right?
He was very cool, and he did a great job directing it. And he really, really loved all the details, the hat he wears, and the whole kind of jazz thing, and because he was very, very into all of that stuff. And so it's a wonderful episode. And 20 years later, they screened it at the convention in Las Vegas. And so they're screening the episode. Then there was going to be a panel with all of us on the panel, the cast and producers and writers and so forth. And in the green room behind where they were screening it, they were running it on a monitor. And now normally in the green room, the actors are not watching what's on the screen. They're just kind of calling their agents and eating food and schmoozing and blah, blah, blah. When I went back there and Far Beyond the Stars was on, it was the entire cast of Discovery and the entire cast of DS9, and you could hear a pin drop. They were watching this episode just blown away by it. I mean, blown away. And when the cops kill, Jake, and he's just taking a crowbar to try to steal a car, and they murder him, and Cisco says, or Benny says, you murdered him. And this is right in the middle of Black Lives Matter. It was just, it's like, it's more relevant now than when it was then. It's a major, it's astonishing. A major American studio basically has a show that is saying, yes, it's true, black people are murdered by the cops. Wow. Phenomenal.
Yeah. Actually, I mean, I'd like to get to it later because we need to get to the comments as well. But remind me to ask you in a minute about how you feel about the Jordan Peele period of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. I could answer that a little bit now. I was disappointed in that show. You can't have Twilight Zone as your left-hand work while you're doing a whole bunch of other stuff. You have to really. It's not easy to come up with a really good Twilight Zone story. And there were some okay episodes, but he should have. I think he could have made it much better if he had just really devoted himself fully to it. You cannot be casual about it. It won't work. So, and of course, and the 1980s version was good. It had some great episodes, but very, very hit and miss. Whereas, of course, the original had Rod as that vision, and Matheson and Beaumont and George Clayton Johnson and Earl Hamner as that phenomenal writing team, working under him. So it was, but that's my thought about that.
Yeah. There is the reason why I jumped to that was there is a really good one, I think, called Replay, which is again about the Black Lives Matter thing, about a mother that keeps trying to rewind time to stop her son from being murdered by the cops.
Huh.
I think that's a good episode.
That's fun. Yeah, I haven't seen that one. I didn't watch all of them. I watched some of them, but
Yeah.
you know, there's only I'm too busy making television right now to be watching all of it. You know, so
That's great.
It's really fascinating listening to you talk about the history of that show getting produced, because when you guys were deciding on the director, you were at a much smaller level, I guess, but you guys were dealing with the very same issue that is explored in the show itself when they were they were refusing to publish that article. It kind of it actually speaks to the importance of the episode, of the message in the episode itself, what you guys were dealing with.
Yes, and again, it's I mean, all of us were very aware of the importance and controversy of that episode. The fact that, you know, I admire Ira Behr enormously. He was a terrific showrunner, and the fact that he came up with that idea of having race be at the center of it, and the fact that he worked to push that through where the studio would approve it, just great job. You need that kind of guy to make that happen. You know, it doesn't happen just of its own.
But what's so special about it as well is that it got everything right. It's like the ending is so powerful.
Yes.
You know, and it's because it believed in itself, if you know what I mean. It's like it set it up and then it went with it and actually followed through.
It knows what it's doing. It knows what it's doing. And Brock Peters is so terrific. I had lunch with him sometime after that. And, you know, Brock Peters was one of the great black actors. He's in To Kill a Mockingbird. And he's so solid in that episode of DS9. And just, I mean, where Cisco's in the ambulance and says, am I the dreamer or the dream? And Brock Peters says, you're both. I mean, that's just, and then you see the stars going by outside that window. It's just, wow, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Right, let's say hello to some people. So Jenny says hello.
Hello.
Pat says hello. Nathan's here.
Great.
Jenny saying hi to Olive.
Good to see all of you.
My brother's here.
Yeah.
Thanks for tagging me in the recent tag you did. Nathan says, so great that Mark was able to recycle props from other shows.
Yes.
What's his favourite prop? There you go. He's got a question. What's your favourite prop or set that you've been able to use?
It's really amazing. If you go on Mr. Sci-Fi, my YouTube channel, and click live, you'll see a tour of one of our stages that has all these spaceship consoles and spacesuits and all that. I've got this amazing spaceship console from Thunderbirds, the live-action Thunderbirds that Jonathan Frakes did. That's just gorgeous. It's metal and it lights up and it has a throttle and it's just spectacular. I think probably the item that is the most personal meaning to me is I have the spacesuit from the Twilight Zone episode Death Ship, which was then used in the Outer Limits and many Outer Limits episodes. It was originally made for Men into Space, a TV show that CBS did in 1959. But again, I keep acquiring stuff. I have stuff from Armageddon and Ender's Game and Cloverfield Paradox and Red Mars. I mean, anytime there's a high budget Passengers, we used a cryo sleep thing from that. And one of the things I just acquired, I haven't even gotten yet, is that I'm very happy to get. My friend Greg Jean, who built the city in Blade Runner, and he built the mothership in Close Encounters. Huge guy, amazing talent. He told me one day he was at MGM working on a film, and a group of guys, just workers at the studio, had been told to empty out a storeroom and just throw everything away. And so Greg looks out and he sees lying on top of a dumpster the entire spacesuit from 2001: A Space Odyssey. So he takes it home. Now I could never afford to buy that spacesuit. It went for close to $1 million when it was auctioned off recently. But Greg made a copy of that space helmet out of metal and plexiglass, and I was able to acquire that at the auction that Heritage just did. So I have a spacesuit that is a copy of the spacesuit from 2001 that was made for a commercial. So I'm going to be putting that all together and replicating the spacesuit from 2001, which is one of my very favorites. And so that's going to be really terrific. But and anytime you guys are in LA, you're welcome to come visit my studio. We have, it's just amazing, these props. I just bought this yoke and command console from Black Adam, and these things are, and I have a spaceship console from Planet of the Apes from Tim Burton, And these items are they spend thousands of dollars, $50,000, $100,000 or more, building them, and you might see them for like a second in the
Yeah.
film, if that. I mean, that control yoke is gorgeous. Again, it's made of metal. It lights up, and you see it in 2 shots, and just kind of in a corner. So I'm really glad to salvage these things and utilize them, and then we use them as an adjunct to the sets that we design and build from whole cloth. So it's super fun. I love doing it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Medium John Silver says the Twilight Zone Companion is a bookshelf essential. Absolutely, I have it handy whenever I'm rewatching the original episodes.
Yes.
You put so much information into them. I mean, I'm using these for the videos I'm doing, and the stuff that's like the fact stuff, I'm pretty much getting from there. The opinions and how I feel about them is obviously me, but yeah, there's loads of there's so much that you put in there. It's amazing.
Well, one of the big things, one of the big reasons I wrote it was I wanted to know how these writers came to come up with these amazing stories. What made them those people who could write those amazing episodes? And when I was the book was I sold it to Bantam, and my editor said, well, we want to cut out all that stuff on the writers. No one's going to be interested in that. And I said, look, I'll trade you. We keep the stuff in about the writers, because I wanted to tell about Rod Serling and Charles Beaumont and George Clayton Johnson and Matheson and Earl Hamner. Those are of great interest to me. And so I said, I'll trade you. You can pick whatever photographs you want from my collection and put in the book. I'll have no say on that. And if you let me just keep the material in about the writers. And they said, okay. So that's how I won that.
We had to try and find a deal, try and think of something they'd be happy with to let you do it.
Because I wanted to write something meaningful. I wasn't writing a puff piece. We've all read books written where it's just like fans gushing but no information, and that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to really look at this thing and say, how did this? It's like the Mona Lisa or something. How did someone conceive of that? And it was so great that I was able to have those conversations with Matheson and George Clayton Johnson and Rod's family and Buck Houghton. I interviewed all 4 producers of the Twilight Zone. They were all with, and many of the directors. Douglas Hayes, who did Eye of the Beholder and The After Hours and The Howling Man and The Invaders, he became a very dear friend, and and he was just a spectacular director. Amazing.
The After Hours was one that I had forgotten about, and when I watched it recently, I loved it. I thought it was really cool. And there are so many really good parts for women in the original series. I think.
Yes, and Frances was so spectacular in that. I interviewed her for the book as well, and we planned to meet for like a dinner where I would interview her at this hotel lot. And when we got there, the restaurant was closed, and so it was dark, and so it was very Twilight Zone because it was all dark with all the tables turned upside down on the tables, and she was just so spectacular. And I've been a fan of hers from Forbidden Planet and all of that. So to be able to sit with her, and she was still so beautiful when I interviewed her, amazing. And I'm a huge fan of all these incredible talents.
The acting in the series is insane, isn't it? I mean, you just you don't get that kind of acting very often now, let alone in 1959. I mean,
many of those actors were not doing television generally. It was the Rod Serling scripts, or it was the quality of the scripts that attracted that quality of actors. They would often, the top of the show salary for the actors was $5,000, which for many of these actors was very low money, but they would do it because it was something meaningful. And and I love actors. I love working with actors. I mean, the reason I'm in television, I mean, I've written novels successfully, I've written nonfiction successfully, but TV is my art form, TV drama, and and the reason I do it is because I love collaboration. I mean, think about it. Here's Far Beyond the Stars, this astonishing, trailblazing piece of work. Well, if I hadn't been collaborating with Ira Bear, that wouldn't exist. It would have been, maybe it would have sold, maybe it would have been about the world of science fiction writers in the 50s, but it would not have had the depth and the impact that it has. So I love the fact that other writers or directors or actors can make my work so much better. And so like right now when I'm working with Doug Jones and Bob Picardo and all these phenomenal actors, Armin Shimmerman, we're working with him as well, and James Hong. I mean, to work with James Hong, just someone I've seen in Blade Runner and Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, it's just such an honor. One of the other people we're working with is Barbara Bain from Space 1999 and Mission Impossible, and she's still spectacular, and she's in her 90s, and how fun. So
Is she in one of these episodes, Barbara Bain?
She wasn't in Twilight Zone, but she was in Mission Impossible, which was done when Star Trek was done. Desilu was the company, and then she went on. She was married to Martin Landau, and then they did Space 1999 together, which I think probably is what she's best known for. But she's a pistol. She's great.
Yeah, that's cool. She's still working because she must be. Is she in her 80s now? Or?
She's in her 90s, and but
90s, wow.
she's in great shape and clear-headed. See, the thing is, another great thing about science fiction is you can meet the actors at the conventions, and so that's how I was just meeting the actors. Jeanette Goldstein, she played Vasquez in Aliens. I'm talking to her about casting her in a role, and Casper Van Dien, who I mentioned earlier from Starship Troopers. I mean, I meet many of these actors at conventions, and then bring them into what I'm doing, and so it's just wonderful.
Yeah, amazing. Nathan said, who have been Mark's favorite writers to work with on any show, and were any writers particularly hard to work with?
I very much like working with the Star Trek guys, and many of them went on to become showrunners in their own rights. Brandon Braga and Ron Moore, Ron Moore's done just astonishing work since with BSG, with Battlestar Galactica, and For All Mankind, and on Sliders, it was a very small writing staff. We had 22 episode order, and the prime writers were me and Chris Black, who's now the showrunner on the Godzilla TV show on Apple Plus, and Bill Dial. Bill Dial was an older guy. He came off WKRP in Cincinnati. He wrote the episode where the turkeys are thrown out of the helicopter on Thanksgiving. It was a very well-known episode, very weird. But Bill was a big historian. He loved history. And Chris and I were big Star Trek fans and knew the genre. So it was a really good melding of knowledge and talents, and the three of us wrote basically all 22 of those episodes. We had freelance writers coming in every day to pitch, and we bought 11. So half of the scripts we were writing ourselves, half were freelance assignments. But of those freelance assignments, because we knew the show so much better, because we were living it day in day out, we would be doing page one rewrites on all of those freelance scripts. So even though I don't put my name on those, I don't want to credit jump. I don't want to take half of the residuals from some poor freelancer. So many of those episodes I actually wrote don't have my name on them because of that. I don't want to. I don't think it's appropriate. That's just my.
Was Tracy Torme involved in Sliders as well?
He created Sliders. Sadly he just died recently, and but he and I knew each other. And the funny thing was, the previous season was so acrimonious with the writers basically at war with each other. There was only one of them left when I came on, who was the showrunner, who had moved up showrunner. But Tracy wouldn't talk to anyone from Sliders except for me. So if there was a question about the continuity or the intent, I'd be the one to call Tracy, and he'd talk to me. And the funny thing is, the same year that they did the Sliders pilot, George R.R. Martin did a great parallel world pilot called Doorways that didn't get picked up, and he felt that Sliders had ripped him off, and he would talk to me because I'd worked with him on Beauty and the Beast and the new Twilight Zone. So it's very funny that both Tracy Torme and George R.R. Martin, who were incredibly embittered against Sliders for various reasons, would both talk to me and stayed friendly to me. So pretty hilarious.
That's good. That's your characters, isn't it? So that's great.
Yeah, and so I feel so blessed by the people I've known. Of course, I like, for instance, when Ray Bradbury became a dear friend and mentor in the last decade or so of his life, he mentioned that there were 22 Mars stories that he wrote that were not in the Martian Chronicles, and so I actually laid out a mini series called Ray Bradbury's Lost Mars. That I was going to write, and my friend Michael Ninkin, who was a director from Battlestar Galactica, was going to direct, and we were going to produce it together. And Ray gave me the full rights to that. So basically, to talk to Ray about that material and to start to look at making that into a project, that was incredibly fun. And so, the writers I've known, the writers who've mentored me, the writers I've collaborated with, it's just been great fun. And even when I was writing animation, many of those writers, there were only a handful of us who were writing basically all the shows at that point, and they became very close friends. We were all rep by the same agent. We would have these pool parties, that were really fun. And it was we were all in our 20s and early 30s at that point, all very ambitious, and went on to greater things, many of us. And so it was, like Joe Straczynski, J. Michael Straczynski, he was one of that group, and he story edited Real Ghostbusters. Michael Reeves and I wrote for that show. Then when I was hired to develop Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future, I spent a year on that show developing it, and I treated it like an adult science fiction show. I was very serious about it. They wanted me to story edit it, but I was writing features at the time, and so I said, look, I I'm gonna tell you to hire someone who you've never heard of, who's never done live action, but I will guarantee him if he cannot do the job, I will step in. And that was Joe Straczynski, who I recommended, J. Michael Straczynski. And the two producers were John Copeland and Doug Netter, who became the producers on Babylon 5. So that was, so you can see the connective tissue.
You put them together. You put the people together to do Babylon 5.
Yes. And so Babylon 5 would not have existed in that form, at least, had I not been instrumental in that thing, and then that led to me writing for Babylon 5. So it's all hand in glove. So because we're all doing, none of us are cynics, none of us are just taking a buck. Joe Straczynski, Michael Reeves, all of these, Harlan certainly, Ted Sturgeon certainly, all of us are writing this material because we love it. And someone once asked me when I was writing animation if I was writing for the child in the audience, and I said, no, I'm writing for the child in myself. So and that was true. I'm always writing to entertain and move myself. And it's like a tuning fork. You find that resonance in yourself, and then you share it with the world. It's a great honor.
Just because you've mentioned the Ray Bradbury again, how far are you in your book you were writing called My Ray Bradbury? How far have you got?
Ultimately, what I ended up doing was I just recently wrote a book called Greenlighting Yourself, and I put a lot of the Ray material in that. So I don't know if I'll end up writing that book because I've shared a number of stories about Ray on Mr. Sci-Fi, and I wrote a lot in Greenlighting Yourself about Ray. We'll see what time brings. I just wrote a new book, a memoir about my mom called Love Gloria, that's about how one deals with trauma and is able to build a loving relationship with others. It's very close to me, of course. But Ray was just an amazing mentor, an amazing friend. It was such an honor to be able to hang out with him. I go about once a month over to his house, and we talk about life and work and art. And it was such an honor, such an incredible honor.
Gareth is a huge Bradbury fan. He's been going through all of his works. And...
Yes, he's one of a kind. He's one of a kind.
I just earlier today I bought a book of his poetry. So I haven't had his poetry before, but I bought so it's on its way in the post. But yeah, I'm pretty much a completist. Anything that I didn't know existed, I'll get it if I see it.
Yes, and Ray was, he was probably the greatest science fiction writer of all. I think he was unique. His stories are incredibly memorable. They really stand the test of time. The Martian Chronicles is one of my favorite books, as well as Fahrenheit 451, many other of his works. And Ray said to me at one point, he said, looking back over a lifetime, you see that love was the answer to everything. And that's profound. And but he was in his 80s and 90s when I knew him. He had come across some things I'd cooked up, some writing of mine, and he called me and he just said, you must come over to the house. And I went over to his house, this big yellow house in Cheviot Hills in Los Angeles, and we just hit it off. And then once a month for over 10 years, I would go to his house. I would always bring a copy of one of his books for him to sign to me. And it was like a dream come true. It was wonderful.
Wow.
And he at one point he said, I have a secret to tell you. And he motioned me close, and we both leaned in, and he said to me, I'm 13 years old. And he was. It was true. It was true. And wonderful, really just wonderful.
You see so many people talk about his influence. Even Stephen King talks about how his influence, and you can see Ray Bradbury's influence on King's stuff, can't you?
Yes, very much so, and Neil Gaiman's stuff as well, majorly. And it's like the thing about Ray that was so phenomenal. Ray would basically, early in his career, he would sit down on a Monday, write an entire short story in one sitting, then polish it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and mail it off to his agent in New York Friday. And he would write 50 stories a year. He would write one per week, take off 2 weeks for vacation, and he did that for 70 years. And evenings and weekends were for the family. And that's an amazing regimen. This guy, when I knew Ray in his 80s and 90s, and this is after he'd had a stroke, he was still writing 2 books a year, 2 new books. And it was interesting, it's because of the stroke, he couldn't type anymore. So what he would do is he would wake up in the morning with the words in his head, and he would call one of his daughters in Arizona, dictate the writing to her. She would type it on the computer and fax the pages back to him where he could make hand corrections. That's a guy made of iron. That's a guy who is determined to let nothing stop him. And
That's amazing.
just amazing man, amazing man, a very dear friend.
Because I don't think I've read the later stuff, so I am more familiar with the stuff pre-2000. But he wrote some stuff in the 2000s, which I do own, but I haven't got to it yet.
Yes, and he, again, I think his greatest period was in the 40s and 50s, and maybe into the early 60s when he did Something Wicked This Way Comes. I mean, he, I mean,
it's my favorite, that one.
Yeah, but again, when you look at the body of his work, my God, I mean, there's so many classic stories. And at one point, I said to Ray, I said, I just realized what business you're in. I said, it's not writer. I said, you're in the Ray Bradbury business. And he said, yes, that's exactly right. Where if someone wants that thing, they can only go to that guy. That was true of Harlan Ellison. That was certainly true of Stephen King, Charles Dickens, Mark Twain. I mean, that's the thing. You brand the brand is not the individual piece of writing. The brand is you as the writer. So yeah. And he said, yes, exactly, yes. And so really wonderful, and I can't speak highly enough of Ray. A dear friend.
That's amazing. Okay, so Cliff says hello. Cliff says, I love Ray Bradbury, but he's a newbie. He is a newbie, so he's getting to know it. He's like, it's nice seeing his journey into it. He's mainly a horror reader.
Yes.
And he's loving your appearance. He's saying that you're so passionate and expressive, and he's loving it. So
thanks. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much. Well, but again, it comes from that love. It's like Harlan and Ray and Ted Sturgeon. All these guys had that love. That there's a quality where they're not asleep at the switch. They're bringing it, and Harlan said, Harlan would say, I wake up every day of my life angry. So he, in the way, he was the antithesis of Ray Bradbury, but they both were creating work of merit. And you can
see that in Harlan Ellison's writing as well, can't you?
Oh yeah, Harlan was, Harlan was also a friend, and I loved Harlan. I think Harlan's more responsible for me having a career than anybody else. But he was a very, very temperamental man, and I used to say that Harlan burnt his bridges while he was on them, so and but he was a dear soul. And again, there are as many stories of Harlan doing kindnesses as there are of Harlan being an asshole. And so
that's interesting that you say that, because I obviously don't, you knew him, I don't know him, I'm just a fan, but I get the impression from the people, because Neil Gaiman was close to him as well, wasn't he? And I get the impression that if you knew him, he was like a lovely man, but there was this sort of persona he liked to kind of look like an ass.
He was a mix. It was like, I'll show you something interesting. Over here, when I was a teenager, I drew this portrait of Harlan. So that's it's actually on his website as his masthead. So I actually drew one copy.
It looks awesome.
One copy that I gave to Harlan. Harlan signed that photo, and then I drew another copy for myself because I really was happy at how it came out. It really captured a lot of Harlan's quality. And but that comes from my 4 years of art school. I think I drew that when I was around 17, something like that, 17, 18 years old. But Harlan, his being a jerk was not an act. He really was. He could be. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. At one point, I called Harlan, and this is after I'd known him for like 30 years. And of course, he had this wonderful house called Ellison Wonderland, and it had all this cool stuff in it. And I said, Harlan, I called him and I said, Harlan, I was just doing my bucket list. And I realized that one thing on my bucket list is I'd love to see your house. I'd been in the foyer, but I'd never really gotten a tour of the house. And he said, well, let me tell you, when you know that you're dying, call me and I'll show you the house. And his wife was so aghast at this response that she said, Harlan. But that was classic Ellison, and but still you couldn't hold a grudge for long. The last thing Harlan ever said to me was when Ray Bradbury died, there was an event at the library around the corner from where he lived. It's now named the Ray Bradbury Library, and Harlan Ellison, George Clayton Johnson, gave a talk remembering Ray, and I was in the audience, and I raised my hand and I talked for a few minutes just extemporaneously about Ray Bradbury and why we all loved him, why he was unique. And the last thing Harlan said to me, because I had to leave for a meeting, Harlan said, "It's good seeing you, Mark." And so that was very nice that we parted on those words, And he was a remarkable man, unique, as was Ray. Very glad. I'm so glad I got to know both of them. I feel so honored by this life that I'm gifted with. And now having my own studio full of spaceship sets. I mean, doing Space Command. We're finishing hour 6 of the 12-hour season of Space Command, and and we're getting ready to shoot the next 2-hour story of it, and then we have 5 other series that we're doing after that that I'm creating with Rockne O'Bannon, and the creators of The Expanse, and it just continues, and the new Rod Serling show that I want to do. So it just continues.
Yeah, because obviously I've said a million times how important this show is, the Twilight Zone is to me, and my band is named after the show as well, by the way. So so my band is called Bemis, named after Henry Bemis.
That's fun.
And and every album title is the title of an episode.
That's great.
So the first album was called Time Enough at Last, which is obviously Henry Bemis.
Yeah. Well,
and actually my son's band is called Henry. So
that's great. So it's on the marquee, Henry Bemis. That's such a great episode. I mean, it's got such a sad ending, but it's such a great episode. And Burgess Meredith, when I interviewed him, it was at his house. He had a house in the Malibu colony, so we actually sat outside and just watched the ocean. And we talked about the 4 episodes he'd starred in, but that was the big one. That was the one that everyone remembered. And he told me that he said Rod Serling, like most good writers, listened more than he talked. And he was very aware of Rod being very observant of the human condition, and the fact that Rod really had sympathy for the little people, the bank tellers and the sales girls. And he's not writing about presidents or kings or heads of state, and he's not enthralled in rich people, people with wealth. Those are, the people with wealth in Twilight Zone usually are the bad guys, and but if if you're just a regular person like Vera, the mirror image where the girl's just waiting in that bus station and sees the duplicate of herself, it's like, that's one of the things I think that really draws us in. And that's why you can watch episodes of the Twilight Zone even when you've seen them before, even when you know what the trick ending is, the twist ending. That's not what Twilight Zone is about. It's one of the elements that's entertaining. But you get into those characters and you get into those worlds, and Rod wears his heart on his sleeve. The big wish, my God, the big
full of empathy, isn't it, and full of social commentary. It was just absolutely stacked with it.
Just great. Yeah. But the cool thing about that episode, The Big Tall Wish, is it's an all black, largely black cast, but it's about a fighter, and that story could be about anybody, anytime, anywhere, any color. It's not about his race. It's about whether or not you're willing to believe in a miracle, believe in magic, or not. It's such great.
But it was also right at the start of the civil rights movement as well, wasn't it? So just before that happened.
Yeah.
So if Rod Serling was around, I don't know, writing 8 years ago, he would have been writing just before Black Lives Matter, and he was.
Yes.
You could see.
Yeah, he'd be every bit. I mean, so much of what he wrote is so timely today. The Obsolete Man, my God, that's book destroying books, all of that stuff. And when I was going through Rod's scrapbooks, these big heavy leather volumes of clippings, I'm going through them and turn a page and there's a photo of Rod with Martin Luther King. I mean, he was in the thick of it, very much so. He wasn't just paying lip service to those things. He profoundly felt them. I mean, the In Praise of Pip is probably the first reference in any TV drama to the Vietnam War. That's because Pip is dying. He's dying in Vietnam. There's, and it's not even supposed to be a war there. It's amazing. In 1963, phenomenal, wonderful piece of work.
Yeah. Well, and the one called He's Alive, I think it's called He's Alive. The one with Dennis Hopper.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that sounds like Trump in that. It's got to be said.
Well, Rod really understood the danger. The reason Rod wasn't blacklisted in the 50s was because Rod hated communism as much as he hated fascism. He hated any authoritarian system that basically destroyed the individual. He was always rooting for the individual. He was strongly against conformity, and that's something you can see in Eye of the Beholder, which is such a phenomenal episode. I mean, this is decades before disability rights, any of that stuff. And here's this woman who's supposedly horribly ugly. Her face is wrapped in bandages, and she's trying to have surgery so she can just look normal. And it's an amazing piece of work. And when I interviewed Doug Hayes about it, Doug directed it. He told me that he was tasked with this very challenging problem of having a girl in bandages who had to be a great actress and very emotive. And then when you unwrap her, she's stunningly beautiful. So his brilliant idea was to cast 2 different actresses. And so at the end, it's Donna Douglas from the Beverly Hillbillies, but it's a completely different actress when she's wrapped in bandages.
But also, his massive job in that episode is to make sure we don't see the nurses and doctors.
Yes, a great challenge, And Buck Houghton told me, the producer, told me that you cast directors as carefully as you cast actors. And he said he knew that was going to be a very difficult script to film, to have it, because it had needed such choreography between the camera and the shadows, the lighting, the actors. You never see their faces and until the ending. And Doug was perfect. He was brilliant. And also Doug was a visual artist. He'd done newspaper strips, as an artist, and the greeting cards in his career before he was in TV. And so he actually went into the makeup department with the great William Tuttle, the first makeup artist to win an Oscar. And he said he got his hands in the clay, and Doug's idea was they would look sort of like pig people. And the idea, because at the time they were doing the Time Machine, and Tuttle was doing the Morlocks with appliances where you glue little pieces of foam rubber on the face, and there were these grotesque faces. And Doug said, well, why don't we do something like that for these guys? And so they basically created asymmetrical. The lip goes up at an angle. There's the pig faces and the brow, and so they did one that goes this way and one that goes that way. And then by putting them on different actors, you could have all these different characters with just basically two appliances, and it worked like a charm. It's spectacular.
Didn't William Tuttle also do the Planet of the Apes stuff as well, right?
That was John. What's his name? But they all knew each other, and they were all. I mean, I interviewed William Tuttle when I did Twilight Zone book. But Tuttle did Seven Faces of Dr. Lao, which he won the Oscar for.
I think that's what I was thinking of.
He did Young Frankenstein. He starred his first credit was Wizard of Oz, under the great Jack Dwan. So.
Really? Yeah. I didn't know who the Wizard was. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. But these are just incredibly talented people, and it was phenomenal.
Mark, I'm going to ask the big question. I'm going to go for it, and I understand if it can't be just one.
Yes,
but your personal couple of favorite episodes of all time.
Well, my favorite is probably what was Rod's favorite, which is Walking Distance, which is Gig Young goes back in time to his childhood. And his father basically confronts him and says, "This is not your summer. It has to be that little boy." And it's so beautifully written and so beautifully directed and acted. And Rod, the interesting thing about Rod, and it was only something I realized relatively recently, when Rod was in the military, he was fighting in the Pacific in World War II as a paratrooper, and the war was over, but he was still in the service, and his dad died very unexpectedly at age 52 of a heart attack. Rod himself died of a heart attack at 50 of complications from open heart surgery. But so he asked for a leave to go to the funeral, his dad's funeral, and he was denied the leave. So he never really got to say goodbye to his father, who he loved dearly and deeply. And so Walking Distance is really Rod's saying goodbye to his dad, going back into time and saying the farewell he would have wanted to say, and to share with his father that it's how under the gun he was and how tired he was, and having his father say, well, there's band concerts and cotton candy where you're from, you just have to look for those moments of happiness. It's a very melancholy episode, and Bernard Herrmann's score in that episode is just I always tear up at that episode, and it's great. I mean, I love so many Twilight Zone episodes. Eye of the Beholder, Kick the Can, Death Ship. On Thursday We Leave for Home. That's one of the other hour episodes.
That's my favorite hour-long one. That's so brilliant.
It's spectacular, and because Rod would always be disparaging himself, saying I'm written out. I'm just writing characters sound like Rod Serling talking to himself. But I mean, he wrote In Praise of Pip in the 5th season. That's a bang up episode, and he wrote On Thursday We Leave for Home in the 4th episode. I mean, that guy is one of the greatest writers who've
Well,
ever worked in the medium.
yeah, Masks is in the 5th season, isn't it? Masks.
Yes, yes, and I'll tell you something funny about that. A couple years ago, they flew me out to Ithaca for the Rod Serling celebration, and I visited with one of Rod's daughters, Jody. I visited with both his daughters, but Jody Serling, I went to her house, and there on her wall were those masks, and
No way.
I had no idea they're still in existence. It's very rare that you find any props, anything from Twilight Zone. And I said, "What's the story here?" And she said, "Well, my dad brought them home when they did the episode, and it was in the living room in this big, case, this big plastic frame." And my mom found it creepy, and she said, "Put that in the garage." And so years later, Jody asked her mom if she could take them, and her mom said, "Be my guest." And so I took photos of myself with those masks because they're again. William
Tuttle. Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite episodes by mine. I love it, absolutely love it. And because I'm almost at the 5th season with my rewatch, I'm really excited about Masks.
Yes.
But yeah,
something. But yes, absolutely. And so Twilight Zone. There's fewer great episodes in the 5th season than in the 1st season, but still, there's still some spectacular pieces of work. I mean, Talkie Tina, and that's credited Charles Beaumont, but it was actually written by Jerry Soule because Beaumont was
Telly Savalas.
Yeah, a great episode. And June Foray is the voice of Talkie Tina, and she also did the voice of Chatty Cathy, which was a toy at the time that Talkie Tina is riffing on. So it's and she was also the voice of Rocky the Flying Squirrel as well. So amazing stuff. It's just great. It was such an honor to be able to interview all these people and get all these stories.
Isn't it funny that all the main cast of Bewitched are in Twilight Zone?
Yes, and also many of the actors from Star Trek. I mean, James Doohan and Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. It's and George
Takei as well. Yeah.
And so I was they were really drawing upon the great actors of that period. So now I'm going to have to head off in a minute or two. So if you have a couple more questions, we can.
We'll see. Let's try and hone in on the questions for a sec. So the Modern Rumpus just flagged up your mention of Octavia Butler. Have you got any stories about Octavia Butler?
Yeah, it's one time I met an agent who was taking me on as a client, and I told him all these people I knew and all these people I'd encountered through my career, and he said, "God, you're like Zelig," which was the Woody Allen characters everywhere and all the hysterical things. Octavia Butler, yes. So Ted Sturgeon was teaching an adult education course at UCLA when I was an undergrad at UCLA, when I just got back from Clarion. And I was forbidden to take adult education courses because I was an undergrad. But I said, well, hell with that. I'm not going to miss an opportunity to take a writing class from Ted Sturgeon. He was one of my heroes. And so I took the class, and Octavia Butler was in it. And she had just she'd been at Clarion in 72, and I was Clarion in 75. She actually was going by her name Estelle Butler at the time. And at one point she got up to read this part of a novel she was working on. And it was like I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I thought, what the hell is this thing? Might have been Pattern Master, one of her things. I don't know. And yet, of course, later I read Kindred, which was a terrific book. And so she and I, kept in touch. I have photos of myself with her, and she died far too young. She died, I think, at 56 from a fall. It was either a fall or she had a stroke and fell and hit her head. They weren't sure, but either way, she died far younger than she should have. But she was very tall and very stately, and she had sort of this deep voice, and she was quite a memorable person. And I'm so glad that she got to have the notice, the attention that she deserved while she was alive, because not everyone gets that, and she did, thank God. So she was I'm so glad that her work has continued to be appreciated and valued, because it certainly deserves it.
Absolutely. So Nathan says Mark's career has been utterly fascinating. So many incredible experiences. Is there anyone in science fiction that you haven't worked with but would like to?
Well, I try to work with people as I encounter them. I mean, I wrote a book with Guillermo del Toro not long ago, and he's an amazing guy and really phenomenal and fun. Ron Moore, I think, is so talented. I think For All Mankind is a great show, but we have worked together, on Next Gen and DS9. I seek out people that I want to know. I recently met Hugh Hovey, who wrote Silo, so I'm going to be following up with him and getting to know him better. And Andy Weir, I really loved The Martian, and I was glad to meet him. But right now I'm so focused on just getting stuff made, because I was able to raise $4 million to open my studio and start shooting Space Command from my fans. They can buy shares for $7,500 each to have a part of my producers' net profits, or we do Kickstarter campaigns also, and that's how I'm financing all this stuff. And so I mean, my friend Mark Fergus and Hawk Ostby, the ones who developed The Expanse for television, and are now on another. They also wrote Children of Men and the movie and Iron Man. And so I'm collaborating with them on a new show called Fugitive Space that we're going to be shooting. It's about this military-industrial prison complex extrapolated to the future with an alien race and humans, and it's really fun. And
Cool.
but so we'll be shooting that. And I mean, at this stage, I just need to just keep doing it, because I'm at a stage now where I can write whatever I want and shoot whatever I want, and I can cast people I love. I mean, where Rock and I, Rock is executive producer. Rock Neil Bannon is executive producer on Evil on CBS, and he created Farscape, Alien Nation, Sequest, Defiance, and Cult. So and I met him on the new Twilight Zone, and we've been friends forever. And so we're creating a show called Sweet Haven, where a bioengineered disease gets out of hand and kills everyone in the world under 60. So only people 60 and above are left alive. And so they have to figure out how to keep humanity going when they can't reproduce. And so we've written the pilot and we've cast it. So the cast is Bob Picard, Robert Picardo, Gates McFadden, Veronica Cartwright from Alien and the Birds, Barbara Bain, James Hong, George Takei. Who else is in it? I mean, Ethan Phillips from Star Trek Voyager.
Wow. This is right there, Savannah.
And
I love Farscape so much, Mark.
Yeah.
You have no idea how much I love Farscape.
Yeah.
So
I've been talking to Gigi Edgley about being in Space Command. I just have to find a good role for her. But yeah, I mean, it's we're all a family, we're all a community in this science fiction world. It's like people think Hollywood is like dog eat dog, but that's not my experience of it. My experience of it is we're people who want to create something that has meaning. And we're so grateful when we've been given the opportunity to do that. I read the Farscape pilot years before it got shot, back when Fox was going to do it. And, so
I love that.
Yeah.
When I turned 50, my daughter did this special video, and she paid for Gigi Edgley to do a cameo video for me.
How great.
It was a lovely video. Yeah.
Really...
It was all these families and friends, and right at the end, it was like, what? It's quite funny.
That's really
cool.
But another actor in Sweet Haven is Michael Harney, who starred in Orange is the New Black and Project Blue Book, and he's in a lot of stuff. You'd recognize him instantly. He plays our hero's father in Space Command, and Anson Kemmer. So, but yeah, so I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches, my life.
You like Wayne Pagram?
Who now? Tell me who that is. That name doesn't ring a bell.
He played Scorpius in Farscape. He's amazing. Yeah.
See, I've only watched very little of Farscape, just because, again, those of us who are making television often don't have the time to sit down and watch. I mean, nowadays when a show is 10 hours for a season or 8 hours for a season, you can watch it. But back when it was 22 or 25 or 30, it's like I recently watched the Chinese version of Three Body Problem, which is 30 episodes, and I thought it was terrific. But again, you have to be willing to invest that kind of time and energy. Babylon 5, even though I wrote for it, I haven't seen all of them. But I want to, because I love what Joe did with it, and I love the cast. I know that backwards as well. Yeah.
And Neil Gaiman wrote for that as well, and Hal Nelson wrote for that as well. He wrote the view from the. Well, I can't remember what the other word is. View from the gallery. I think view from the gallery. Yeah.
And Dorothy Fontana wrote one as well. DC Fontana, the great Star Trek writer. Yeah, we all knew each other. It's fun. It's fun. We'd often riff off each other. Sometimes, when I was on Sliders, I would call the guys on Star Trek and just say, send me some pseudoscience about parallel worlds. I need to justify it scientifically. And they would. Mike Akuda, those guys. And it's just we help each other. We like, for
I've
instance,
got a question, Mark. I've got a question. Like, so we've got some other questions, but I just want to ask you a question. So we had your favorite original series episodes.
yes,
What is your favorite 80s series episode or story?
on Star Trek. On Star Trek,
I know, on Twilight Zone. Your favorite Twilight Zone 80s.
I really like Paladin of the Lost Hour, which is one Harlan wrote with Danny Kaye in it and Glyn
Yeah.
Turman. I saw Glyn Turman in that episode, and then I wrote a role for him in Lazarus Man, which was a Western that I wrote and produced. But I like that one. I like Nightcrawlers, which is a terrific episode that William Friedkin directed. There's a handful. There's the one, what was the name of it? Alan Brenner wrote one about this girl who's have her spirits contained in this thing, and it was lovely. I don't remember the title offhand, but there were a bunch of them. But again, it was very hit and miss, that show. So
Yeah, but you're right. There were some good ones. Yeah. So Jenny says, do you ever watch some TV and movies and look at them and make potential shopping lists?
I often watch TV shows and movies and say, okay, I want to meet that actor. I want to write for that actor. And I go after actors. I'll often say to my friends, do you know this person? Or like when I won the Saturn Award for the Twilight Zone set, I met Doug Jones at the Saturn Awards and took him to lunch a few days later and said, I'm gonna write a role for you where we see your face, because he has this amazing sensitive face. So I wrote a lead for him in Space Command just because he was so phenomenal and wonderful.
Doug Jones is amazing. Again, really underrated.
Yes, a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
But that was because I was writing the book with Guillermo del Toro at the time, so we had a lot in common to talk about. And so I mean, I just think it's so much fun to collaborate with these actors and have them just kind of, I'll often say to an actor, what is there a role you'd like to play that you haven't played yet? Or I'll write roles specifically for individual actors. I did that with Mira and with Bob Picardo and Doug Jones and so forth. Anyway, I'm going to have to run off in a minute. Any fun? Yeah.
I'll just try and get one more, if there is any more. Actually, the comments are running out. So there's only one comment where Medium John Silver did remind us that Martin Landau was in. He was actually in 2 episodes, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, he was in the Jeopardy room, and he's also in a great Outer Limits episode called "The Man Who Was Never Born," which is wonderful. And he's also he's in the Western one as well.
The Western.
I'm blanking on the title at the moment too. But the Jeopardy room is interesting because, first of all, Richard Donner, the great Richard Donner, directed it, who went on to do Superman and Lethal Weapon. But that's one of the few episodes of Twilight Zone that doesn't have a fantasy element. It's basically about a guy trying to escape Eastern Europe, escape the communists, who's going to be blown up by a bomb, and he turns the tables on the guy. There's a handful of Twilight Zone episodes that don't have a fantasy element. The Silence is another one where the guy says he won't speak for a year, and then we learn that he cut his vocal cords.
Oh, that episode is amazing. Yeah. That is such an amazing episode. And I'd forgotten the ending, so I was watching it going, I can't remember. I was just like thinking, that's fine, I'll just run with it. And the ending is so brilliant.
It is
so brilliant.
Wonderful stuff. Yeah, so no, it's great. Well, I'm going to have to head on out, but it's been great talking to you guys. And we can do this again whenever you'd like, and because we've barely touched the surface,
Thank you so much, Mark. I could listen to you all day. This has been thanks for making the time for us. This has been a great time.
Yeah, well, thank you guys, and next time we'll definitely let Olive ask some questions as well. So
we'll do.
we can do tell people in advance. We could sort of reference this.
Yeah,
and then try and get some questions for them in, give them a chance to think about questions as well. Yeah. But no, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Mark.
I really appreciate it. And so take care, and we'll talk next time.
Okay.
Thanks,
Mark.
Thank you so much.
All right. That was awesome. Wait, do we still have people here? We do. We still have people here. People still want to talk about biscuits. But
well done, but says it's been an outstanding conversation. And then Nathan says it's been awesome. Unbelievable. No biscuits tonight. We'll be talking about biscuits.
We will be talking about biscuits right now. We're going to be talking about biscuits. Just hold on there, MJ. Maybe MJ means she doesn't have biscuits, but
she hasn't got biscuits.
MJ is not speaking for everybody, just to be clear.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we were hoping that we would allow us to ask him back, but he's just volunteered to come back, so that's just incredible. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
Dave, I need to visit a small room for a little moment. So do you want to hold the fort for a second?
We'll take turns. Olive and I'll handle it for a second. I can't work the comments though, but I can read them. Go ahead, Rocky. Go ahead.
Jenny's just up at it. Oh yeah, this is the most fun I've had with my clothes on for a long time.
Yeah, you leave the room because I'm going to talk about you. Yeah. So I was really worried, guys, because I talked Gareth and I talked beforehand. And I was like, okay, we got to be mindful of the time and this and that. And Gareth is such a fan. I was really worried that we wouldn't be able to get him to get off in time, but I think he did a really good job. All right, like he did a really good job managing the comments, and he did a really good job. He was able to let Mark go in a reasonable amount of time, which I was genuinely worried about. But yeah, how about that, Mark? How gracious is Mark? Right, that was really not. That was like such a nice session, I guess you want to say. Right, Jenny. This was a great show. Yeah, it was great. I mean, it's quite a bit different from our usual show, but I just wanted to. I mean, honestly, I just wanted to listen to Mark talk because he had like so many great stories. This was I could listen to stories like that all day long. Right? Sorry, MJ, I don't have control of the comments, so I can't put them up, but. Yeah, I know. I could listen to stories like that all day long. So two things. I just had to let Gareth talk because Gareth had he had like 8,000 more questions that he wanted to talk about. But but also I don't need to say. I could just listen to him all. I was just fascinated, just sitting here listening to all his historical stories. Like you can't get that anywhere else. You're not even that kind of stuff. You're not even. You okay? You okay, Bubs? You okay? Olive needs another pick me up, I think. You can't even get that stuff in a book, right? Even it's just not the same as when the person comes live and you guys are talking about the history, and they just come out with like so many nuggets of anecdotes and the history behind so many of these things, these shows, that it's like. We're never going to get that anywhere else. And that was like what was so. Oh, you okay? You okay? That's what was so brilliant about this. It's just okay. I don't know what's going on with Olive. I think Olive needs to use the little room too. But let's hear. Gareth's mind was blown with the Ray Bradbury monthly visits. Right? That was what a great story though, and what I didn't really know much about. I don't really know much about Ray Bradbury personally. That was really like endearing to hear that he basically just like kind of took Mark under his wing and just invited him over every month. Like he brought a book every time for him to autograph it. That was a great story. You did a great job. Definitely got Mark onto loads of interesting topics. Yeah. So, Gareth showed me the list, I think it was just a partial list of all the stuff beforehand that he wanted to talk to Mark about. And I was like, all right, Gareth, we can't keep Mark here for 4 hours. And Gareth's like, no, I know, I get it. This list was like so long. There was like so much stuff. I wanted to talk to him actually about that'll have to be for next time. I wanted to talk about the Smurfs because I remember him talking a lot of his early work, I guess in his 20s, was for animation, and he did a ton of the Smurf stuff. He even did a science fiction Smurf episode, and it was So I'll have to wait for next time. I had to let Gareth do all his geeking out, but next time we'll
next time we've got Scarlett Johansson on.
Yeah, MJ wants to hear about the Smurfs too. All right, it's my turn to go. I think Olive needs to go actually, so I'll be right back.
Oh, okay, you're gonna let Olive go. So yeah, this is kind of what I might have to do is just separate the interview bit as well, so that because people might just miss this and then or what just happened, and then separate and put it on as a separate video. MJ does that with with some of her interviews, so I could do that, couldn't I? But that's just, I mean, he's had some kind of connection or a role to play, or literally written most of my favorite shows. It's incredible. Like, you know, what an amazing interview, and so many things about Ray Bradbury. Unbelievable. Yeah. So badly was I nerding out. Exactly. Absolutely. It really was so special. And, you know, I was worried that he wouldn't be on the show for very long, but he was on the show for ages. I was worried that I'd think about all the questions afterwards, but I mean, Mark was just talking away. He was just happy to talk, which is amazing, because he was coming up with stuff that we might have asked later, which was great. And he knew so many people, had so many things to share with us. Unbelievable. Absolutely. And I think also there was little moments where he talked about the writing process as well, which I thought was interesting. So we could talk about that another time, couldn't we? Yeah, exactly. You know, you could talk to him all day long. yeah, visiting Ray Bradbury every month. What? Well, and he's also taught. I just went what, which kind of reminded me of Gigi Edgley. He's talking to Gigi Edgley. I'm a bit of a fan of Gigi Edgley, and the fact that he's talking to her is pretty cool. Did a great job. That's cool. Thanks, Nathan. So will the next big guest be someone? Yeah. Well, yeah, Dave. Well, it's the thing, isn't it? Because normally our guests are friends of ours, people we know personally. So it's going to be a bit strange. Like whoever's going to be on guest next time has got to follow someone from Hollywood. No pressure. We could do like a I don't know, come back to normal a bit with MJ again or something. Is all of okay? Yeah, MJ says she wants to know more about the Smurfs. Yeah, I had loads of Smurfs. I was saying to Dave earlier that the one I kept for the longest, I had Papa Smurf for ages and ages, and I also had the hang glider Smurf. I really like, for some reason, that one appealed to me, so I had the hang glider Smurf.
I think I still have a few of those Smurfs. I collected them too, and I was I think I still have some of those figures around. I'm sure I still have some of those figures around here.
I had about like a dozen when I was a kid. Yeah. I remember in high school, an occult investigator talked to us about satanic panic stuff and said the Smurfs had bits of Satanism in it.
No, come on now.
Well, that's the whole thing about the satanic panic. You can put it anywhere, can't you? You can be scared of anything. So are we going to talk biscuits for a moment?
Yeah, let's talk the biscuits.
Let's get back to normal after the incredible thing that this is weird, isn't it? I mean, how do you? That went well.
Your
didn't
head
it?
is like it's okay for you if you need to decompress for a couple minutes. You know, like let your head stop exploding. It's okay. It's okay. We can take a minute.
Well, I didn't know. I knew he knew Ray Bradbury, but I didn't know that he knew Harlan Ellison as well, and that was amazing hearing what he said about him as well. Because obviously there are a lot of people that have opinions about Harlan Ellison, and a lot of people have opinions about him who didn't know him. And you know, it was great to hear. I sort of gave a very kind of forgiving opinion of someone that, you know, I didn't know him, and then he went, "No, actually, he was an arsehole sometimes." That was brilliant.
And what a wonderful story that was, right? About him going to Bradbury's house every month and bringing something for him to autograph and stuff. What a sweet story.
Yeah. Ray Bradbury seems to be that guy that people talk about. Because I've read quite a lot about the Marx Brothers, as you know, as well, and that's how people talk about Harpo Marx as well. He was just such a lovely guy, and you know, Groucho always said that he was the nicest one out of all of them, and you know, it seems like he was saying that about Ray Bradbury as well. That he was just a really, really lovely man.
Yeah,
which is awesome, isn't it? Should we do comments or biscuits?
Whatever you want.
All right, I feel like these comments have been written a while back. Let's have a look. So Al, I had to watch the Smurfs in the original French. I love that. Yes. Highbrow, lowbrow biscuits. Yeah, we're on to the biscuits, my friend. No, I forgot we were supposed to talk casserole instead of biscuits. Oh, what? We were supposed to talk casserole. Are we talking about casserole? Nice. I went to a carvery today.
I mean, Jenny knows better than us.
Jenny's our leader, but also refuses to have her own channel. We won't talk about that. No, I went to a carvery today. So the first thing this morning, like 9 o'clock in the morning, we went to the cinema. So I had daddy-daughter time. Me and my daughter went to the cinema, so that was pretty cool. But then afterwards, me and my wife and my daughter went to a carvery. So do you have a carvery over there?
I'm not. We don't use that word, so I could guess at what it is.
You know
but
what
maybe
it
I'll
is?
just. No.
We'll go to a restaurant. Yeah. And there's
you're talking about a Brazilian steak. They bring the meats over and you say you want this one or that one. They cut the meats and
and then you have whatever veg you want, and then whatever gravy you want. And then it used to be the case when I was little that you could go back for the veg and the gravy, but you can't anymore. You just have whatever you want at that point, and then you eat that. And you always choose too much. I couldn't finish mine. It was like that. It was like this. It's like you get like you just about fill everything you can onto the plate. And today I just couldn't finish it. But
do the guys keep walking around like for when you want more?
No. In the carveries here, it's like you make your choice. You can choose whatever you want, and then that's your choice.
Oh, I was thinking. So here we have what we call Brazilian steakhouse, right? Where the guys walk around. They have all different kind of meats on like these big sticks, and they just keep walking around. And they walk up to you, and you tell them like how they just carve it onto your plate. You tell them how much you want. When you have enough on your plate, you have a card on the table. When you have enough on your plate, you flip the card so they know not to come up to you for a while you're eating. And then when you're ready for more people to walk up, you flip it back. Yeah.
But that's a steak meal, right? So that's quite. Is that with fries and stuff?
It's not just steak, but it's all different meats.
Because this is like a roast dinner. Do you know what I mean? This is like what you have like like a Sunday roast, but it's at a restaurant with different meats and stuff. So it's definitely a roast dinner model rather than a steak meal. You know. Yeah. But we did that today anyway. So that wasn't a casserole. So that's my only reference to a casserole is I didn't have one. I haven't had casserole for years. My mum used to make a casserole sometimes. It's easy, just bung everything in a pot and stick it in the oven. The story of calling me as a kid was so wholesome.
That's how you get your start in script. That's how you get your start in script writing, apparently.
Yeah. Dave's got his goblet.
That's right, Alan. Always.
Got his goblet out. Get your goblet out, Dave.
Nectar of the gods in there.
Bow before me. We haven't lost viewers, which is good because we haven't got the special guest now, but people are staying, which is lovely. I think Boston Market would be a closest to a carvery. Oh, here we go. A Boston Market. Is that right? Is that what you call it? A Boston Market? Or is it just a market in Boston?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I guess that's probably right.
So she says, Al says, explain the carvery to my wife as a cross between a Brazilian meat house and a cafeteria buffet. It's definitely a buffet situation with the veg, with what veg you choose. And the one local to us is quite a good one, but I remember that for ages they weren't putting garden peas out. And I was really annoyed because it's my favourite veg in a roast dinner. Garden peas, I think they're amazing. I could eat a plate of garden peas. I also like mushy peas as well. Mushy peas are awesome. It's a roast dinner, yeah. So it's more like a barbecue. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's a steak dinner. It's a steak meal. It's like a barbecue thing, isn't it? So yeah, curry's a roast dinner. So a roast dinner, like it's a bit of an English cliche, isn't it? Like a British cliche, roast dinner, isn't it? Sunday roast. But we love them. So biscuits. I've got Jammy Dodgers, but I haven't got the actual company called Jammy Dodgers. So these are jam and cream, it's called. It's a very basic way of saying Jammy Dodger. So it's slightly cheaper. So if you got the ones that were called Jammy Dodgers, then it would be like probably about £1.50, I guess. And these are probably like 80p or something. So slightly cheaper, but Jammy Dodgers. Very nice. They look massive if I do that. Look at that. They're as big as my head. See? You can have big biscuits over here.
You know those ones that Holly
actually.
and I had. Those ones that Holly and I had last.
Yeah, go on.
He's still. Listen, everybody. He's still high from the interview we just had.
I tell you what, I was going to eat so I didn't have to talk over him. But he didn't give us a word in edgeways anyway. He didn't stop talking. He didn't have a breath. I reckon he's got some superpower. He does circular breathing while he was chatting away.
I could listen to those stories all day, man. That was awesome.
It was amazing. But I thought I'd need to eat, so I didn't interrupt him. Do you know what I mean? Like that. I can now call it the ADHD thing after my video. But I didn't have to. But yeah, go on. You carry on. What's your biscuits?
Right. So my biscuits are. Oh, I was going to say last week those ones that Holly and I had. We had they were the black and white Oreos. It was like a black and white cookie inside of an Oreo that we got at that special. I forget what it's called, like the Sugar World or something in New York City. As soon as I put those out in my kitchen, we had a couple while we had the show on. As soon as I put those out in the kitchen, my daughters were all fighting over them. They were gone immediately. Like one of my daughters, like actually, she was like, there won't be any left tomorrow morning. So I had told her she had to put some in a plastic bag and hide them so that she would have some the next morning. They had demolished those. But today, so my wife picked me up these because I was still at the office and so I said, would you mind just picking me up? So I need biscuits for tonight. So she got me these. These look very interesting. They're called, look at this. These sprinkles walk into a sandwich cookie. Look at that.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
Butter cookies filled with buttercream frosting and sprinkles. So you cannot go wrong with buttercream frosting. I don't think ever. I mean,
yeah, I'm down for that.
I mean, maybe if you put it on bacon or something, it wouldn't be great. But I don't know, Bubs. I got to check the ingredients. I'm not sure you can.
Ollie's getting excited.
She's been sleeping for 2 hours. All of a sudden, she perked up. Got real excited. Let me see if there's anything bad in here for you. I think it's okay. Maybe give you a little taste, okay?
She's gonna be like climbing the walls.
She's always. I think you can have a little piece of the sugar cookie part. I'll give you a piece of the sugar cookie part.
I did say to Mark, or Marc Zicree about him bringing biscuits, but I reckon he, thankfully, probably didn't read the last email, which was ridiculous. Where I said we could talk about this, and then just basically put down his entire life. And it might have been why he said we could meet again. But there's so much you could talk to Mark about, isn't there? So, but he was amazing, wasn't he? And he talked to us like we knew us before, which is just so lovely, isn't it? What a nice guy. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to watch this bit. He'll be like, yeah, all right, whatever. But he was such a nice guy.
He's the type of guy that, and so I've seen a lot of his stuff that he's worked on, but there's plenty of stuff that he's worked on. He's worked on so much, plenty of stuff that he's worked on I haven't seen. And, but just based on that interaction with him, I'm now going to go immediately, go through every single thing that he's done, because he's such a nice, fascinating guy.
Yeah. And he was so lovely about other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
He just had a positive thing to say about everybody, which is, how it should live, isn't it? No,
these biscuits are excellent, by the way.
Awesome. So, we're celebrating buttercream and jam today. Or you call this jelly, don't you? No, Jello. What do you call jam? Jello. What do you call jam?
No, I think your jelly is our Jello. And your jam is our. We have jam and jelly, and I'm actually not even sure the difference. I think jelly is more like artificial, just artificial sugar, whereas like jam, I think, is more real fruit based.
Yeah,
Yeah,
jam is made from the fruit.
Yeah,
it is. You
yeah,
add sugar, but you mix it up.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think your jelly our jelly is very similar to jam. It's just more like artificial. But I think your jelly is like Jello, right?
Yeah, our
Jello?
jelly's like bouncy, isn't it? Dodgy Dodgers. Yeah, basically Dodgy Dodgers. Not quite Dodgers, but cheapo Dodgers. They're very nice though. So well done. Who is it? Belmont biscuits. Well done, Belmont biscuits. They're good. They taste just like any other jammy Dodger, slightly cheaper.
Wow.
You should put some more out and see if the girls go all Lord of the Flies next time.
They might.
Oh yeah, yeah. Talking about you and your Oreos.
They might. So I've probably mentioned this before, but I have my older two. I have 3 daughters. My older 2 are twins. They're 20, almost. Well, right now they're 23. My younger one is just towards the end of high school now. The twins are like freaking vultures. Like certain food things which you would never expect from seeing them, because they're very they're very thin, pretty, and but they're like vultures when it comes to like certain snacks. You bring things in the house, and like my young one gets upset because literally like the next day, like I'll bring in a box of donuts and she literally won't even have gotten to try one because they'll be gone by the next day. It's just certain things that like a bunch of vultures that just swoop in. And so literally we'll have to like hide things once in a while. Like if my younger one really wanted something, or I got it for her specifically, we got to hide it in like a back spot down in the basement so that it doesn't disappear immediately.
Love it. Al says jelly's got more gelatin. Yeah, that's true, isn't it? Which makes it bouncy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a flavoursome trampoline.
It's kind of like that. That's pretty much what it is. Yeah, I'm sorry, Bubs. I don't want to give you too many of those because I'm not sure if there's different kind of nuts.
They're very Moorish. Biscuits are very Moorish, aren't they? Let's face it. Fred's appeared. Hello, Fred. He says,
Fred.
"Hi, Gav, Dave. Can't stay long. Thank you, Fred. Nice to see you. Have you done your Q2 video yet, Fred? It'd be interesting to know if you've done your pile of possibilities for Q2. I'm not sure if you have. I've done mine, but it's not going to appear for a few days. I'll tell you what, this week has been really complicated. I've made so many videos, and I wanted to put a gap between the ADHD one and this live show, and also a gap between this live show and whatever comes next. But there's about 5 I wanted to show straight away. So yeah, it's been the real when I'm going to put them on. But we all like to bounce. There you go. That's today's title. We all like to bounce. Bouncing is fun. Fred says, I've not done any videos lately. Busy with family and work. Okay, hopefully busy. I don't know if busy with work is fun or not, but busy with family, hopefully it's good for busy with family.
Yeah, that's why you're making me feel self-conscious. You've been pumping them out, Gareth, and I've had a horrible few weeks. I haven't been able to watch Booktube. I haven't been able to do Booktube because life's been a little crazy, and then we had a guest for a week, so I can't be making videos and watching videos.
That's cool, though. It was lovely when we had her as a guest.
Yeah, but it was great. We had a nice time. We had we have a couple videos coming out for that. We went to I think we went to New York City, and we saw a number of famous bookstores there. You ever hear of the Strand? I don't know if MJ's still here, but MJ gets has a book subscription from the Stand. The Stand is I think it's the oldest. It's 100 years old, independent bookseller, but it's huge. So it's they're either the biggest or the oldest, or maybe both, independent bookseller in the country.
Nice.
Big place in New York City, and they have their motto is that they have 18 miles of books. I think it's actually more than that. But that's their motto that they've had for a long time, 18 miles of books, a couple floors, and it's just crazy. You'll see it in the video. It's crazy. And then we went to the next one was called Rizzoli Books, which is famous for being like the most beautiful bookstore in New York City. I don't think so. I think I saw a more beautiful one that day, actually, but that's what it's known for. And it's pretty small. And so, I mean, it was nice, but nothing to write home about. The last one we went to was the most amazing one. That was called Argosy Bookshop. And that was like, would have like 2 floors, but it was like one of those places. It was like the place was very quaint. It was like, looked like kind of like an old little, and you'd like go up like a little flat couple of stairs, and there'd be like a little balcony over there with some books in the back and different stuff like that. You go down some stairs, there'd be a shelf there with some old Dickens on it. And, like, so, but the main thing about this place was that it was a ton of like really old, rare stuff.
Right.
So it was very, very cool looking. The bookshop looked like an ancient library. It was very, very cool. So that was cool. But then the other day we did some stuff. Did we do this all in one day? Well, there was another day where we did a few things in Connecticut, and we went to we went to a bookshop that's called I've wanted to go to for a while. It's called the Book Barn. And it's
yeah.
Have you heard of that?
No, I heard it from you. You talked about it. Yeah.
Oh,
but not on here. I think you talked about it on Voxer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's incredible. It was like the main in this town. It's Niantic, Connecticut, and in this town they have 3 locations. So we first go to the main location. They call it the Book Barn because there's like barns and sheds and stuff, like different floors, or like old, like very cool to walk through each. So they got a bunch of these buildings all together, these like shacks and stuff that have different categories of stuff. There's tons of used books and really good priced. And despite how big this was, I asked the guy, I'm like, where's the where's the sci-fi? And he goes, that's in the other location. I'm like, well, what about the hard? He's like, that's another location. So it turns out they have 3 locations. That was just the biggest one. They had 3 locations in the town. So if you wanted sci-fi or horror, you had to go to one of the other locations, which we did. And that was also incredible. I got a book haul coming for that, but that was like amazing. And everything was like so cheap. Most of the paperbacks were like $1. And it was crazy. The volume, like if you were looking for like, I don't know, let's say, like the first Wheel of Time, let's say, like a common book, there would be like 5 copies of it there. You know what I mean? Like they had
sounds amazing.
Like, triples, quadruples of like a lot of different like popular paperbacks, and then they had tons of old stuff. There was a number of things there that I saw that I've just had binned. Like if I hear Michael K. Vaughan often, like he'll do his little hauls of vintage sci-fi, and I'll see stuff that interests me, and I'll actually bin it in eBay because I can't find it anywhere else. So I'm not going to buy it because it's like $15 on eBay, but I'll bin it there so that I remember. And like a number of these paperbacks, vintage paperbacks I've been specifically because of Michael, I found there that day for $1 each.
Yeah. That's cool. He'll like that. He'll be watching this because he was really excited about the Marc Zicree's interview. So I'm sure he'll see you say that. And yeah, I mean his collection's awesome in it. So yeah.
Oh. And we also went to that day. We went and saw the I had never been there, which I can't believe, even though I'm so close. The Warrens, the Warrens with Annabelle and The Conjuring, and do you know the Conjuring movies?
Yeah.
You know the Annabelle? Have you heard of the Annabelle doll?
Oh yeah.
So the famous they're dead now, but the famous paranormal investigators were the Warrens. It was a husband and wife. And if you watch the first couple of Conjuring movies, those are the people that are that are I mean, they're actors, obviously, but those are the ones that those movies are about, investigating haunted houses. They're actually not that far from me. They lived like about a half hour from where I am. So I took Holly, because she's into the dark stuff. We went over and we saw where they lived, and they had like it's closed now for zoning reasons, but they have like a little like war museum of the occult where the Annabelle doll is and stuff. So you can't go in there anymore. But we drove up, we furtively drove up the street and took some pictures in front of the house and stuff.
That's
and
really
then
cool.
we went and saw, and then we went to their cemetery and saw their gravesite. So that was pretty cool too.
That's brilliant. When I went to LA, I was really excited to go. Like, one of the things I wanted to do the most was go to the Last Bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I saw pictures of it, videos of it, and it was an amazing shop. Absolutely loved it. Really, really loved it. I bought tons of books in there, but I really loved just walking around it. And I bought a T-shirt, and it was the T-shirt with it's like a zombie making an L shape, I think, with his hands. And really soon after I came back, I've lost it. Don't know where it's gone. I'm so annoyed, because it was like, not going to go back to LA soon, so it's just annoying. Do you know what I mean? But that was cool seeing the.
So I've never been, but my daughter went. My daughter went there, and she got me the shirt. She got me a Last Bookstore, not that one, but she got me a Last Bookstore shirt when she was out there, and she forgot that I am not, all that slim. So I can't wear the shirt.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I sent it to you. Maybe you can fit into it. I don't know. I can't.
I don't know. I'm not that thin either. So yeah, I think we've both got issues. Right, here we go. So Medium Don Silver says, I wish you could post your Twilight Zone videos more often. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. I didn't want
much space. Too much space between them. You got them all recorded already, don't you?
Yeah, I've done. I'll be doing my 20th this week.
Yeah.
I've got one more episode to watch. You're
making the fans wait too long for these.
If I did it, I could. I mean, I could do it like every 2 weeks or something. So it'd speed it up. So literally they'll all be up before the end of the year. Then, and then the only thing I just didn't want anyone that wasn't interested to think, oh, he's doing another one of them. But I do think they're interesting videos. Because the episodes change so much and there's so much you can say. They are actually quite different, videos. So
that's the thing. You do. I was messing with you, but you do such a great job with those. You do a great job with those videos, and it'd be like so you see one, and it'd be nice to like see another one without waiting so long, because they're good.
Yeah, I one of the things I quite like the fact that I made a decision to read out the introduction that he does at the beginning of the episode, and I've found that more and more I'm doing an impression of him. Enter the Twilight Zone. I'm just putting my chart, and that might help things. But yeah, I could do that. So yeah, I'll do that, because why not? Or should we leave it up to Jenny? I'll leave it up to Jenny. If Jenny thinks I should do more than once a month. Jenny. So Fred says, I know Gareth's a big Doctor Who fan. Dave, what show were you a fan of? The A-Team, Knight Rider, Airwolf? Can I just, before you answer that, I was a massive fan of all three of those. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was a massive fan of the A-Team and Knight Rider. Airwolf I didn't watch. I mean, I know what it was, but I didn't watch that one. But yeah, love both.
We made a joke. We were in the pub as a family, and we were talking about the fact that someone suggested that at a certain age you get to give yourself your name, so you don't have a name until you're like 14 or something. Okay. And then I said, thinking about what I was like as a kid and what I watched on TV, I reckon I would have called myself Starbuck. Because I was a big Dirk Benedict fan because of the 18.
I thought for a second there, I thought maybe you were going to say B.A. Baracus.
Or Yoda. Yeah, but no, the A-Team was awesome, wasn't it?
Sure
So was there anything that's not in that list that you really liked?
Back as a kid. Let's see. A-Team. You know what I was really into as a kid? This is gonna sound funny, but you know what show I was really into
Go
was Three's Company. Do you remember that show?
Oh, sitcom.
Yeah, it's a sitcom. I was
Yeah,
obsessed
cool.
with that show when I was like a preteen. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. So what, like 11, 12 kind of age?
Nothing
Yeah,
exciting.
that's cool. That's quite adult, isn't it?
Yeah, even a little younger. Yeah, it is. But yeah, I was really into when I was like 10. I was like really into that show.
There's a show that Jenny would know, but I don't know how many Americans would know because I don't even know if it went over to America. It was a show that was originally Japanese, live action show that was translated into English and was given a completely different script using the footage from the Japanese show. Sounds amazing already, right? It was called Monkey. Did you ever hear a show called Monkey?
No.
And it was based on the Journey to the West, the old Japanese myth of the gods and that. But it was basically a martial arts program. And I absolutely loved it when I was a kid. We all loved it as a kid. It was like one of the things we all watched. And I used to play Monkey in the playground, and we all wanted to be Monkey and all that. But yeah, look it up. It's a mental program, and I don't even know if it would. I don't even know if it would work nowadays because it people would probably see it was sexist or something. I don't know, but yeah, Monkey was a thing when I was a kid. Is that book by the same one that Steve Donahue and Dave Murphy visited? Do you know that? Do you know if it was?
I don't know. They might have because that's within driving distance for them.
Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Check the kids or your wife. We girls in particular love nicking guys' stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, true. Oliver was gazing at the biscuits with such yearning. You could have started one of those ASPCA commercials. Airwolf. I reckon MJ liked John Michael Vincent, didn't she? Yeah, I reckon she liked him more than Ernest Borgnine.
Oh, you know what? I bet MJ liked as well was Miami Vice.
I'm a massive Miami Vice man. I'm a huge man. I've got the box set. I love Miami Vice. Love it.
I forgot about that. That was huge when I was younger. I loved it.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely loved it so much. And what was so funny was there's so many episodes ended with an unhappy ending, wasn't it? They'd like spend an hour trying to make sure someone wasn't killed, and then they die at the end, and it would be like Crockett on his boat just staring into space going, well, that was shit then.
Yeah, and that was probably my first exposure to James Edward Olmos from Battlestar.
Right? So that's yeah. Absolutely amazing. I loved it because when I was really younger, so like the precursor to Miami Vice, I was a huge Starsky and Hutch fan. So
okay, all right.
Yeah. But obviously that wasn't as serious. Miami Vice was like depressing compared to Starsky and Hutch, wasn't it? But I loved Miami Vice because it was my age. Because basically Starsky and Hutch, I was too young really, but Miami Vice, I was the perfect age. I was the target audience for that.
If you're going back into that age, what about Dukes of Hazzard? Did you have Dukes of Hazzard?
Yeah, we watched that. Yeah,
I love that as a kid.
The guy that played Roscoe P. Coltrane is in 2 episodes of the Twilight Zone.
Really?
The guy, he's called James Best. There's one called Jezebel, which you haven't got to yet, but there's an early one that you might have done. I think it's Rance McGrew. I think it's that one. Showdown at Rance
I've probably
McGrew.
seen them anyway. Which episodes are they?
So they're kind of Western based ones. So yeah, it's kind of, I recognize him straight away. And in Jezebel, he actually acts a little bit like the sheriff, a little bit. So yeah.
What's the Jezebel episode about?
It's again, Anne Francis is in it, the one that was in After Hours, and she basically it starts off. It's in season 4, so it's an hour long, and it starts off with this guy James Best, who's going to marry this woman in this village, and on their town, and this girl Jezebel's jealous, and she basically has an agreement. Well, she doesn't really realize that her mother's a witch, but her mother says, "I can make sure that he just wants you," and she kind of puts a curse on her. And he only wants to be with Jezebel, who's the Anne Francis character, and it kind of goes from there. It's a really good episode, actually. I think.
I can't remember if that's. It could be one of the few I've had. There aren't many I haven't seen, but that it's possible. And what was the other one you mentioned?
The other one was I'm pretty sure it's called Showdown at Ransom McGrew, and it's like a comedy western. It's a weird one. It doesn't feel like the Twilight Zone. It's like a guy that is trying to be a fast draw, and no, he's an actor that plays someone with a fast draw, and then basically he has to actually be a fast draw for a real situation. It's like the Three Amigos, but in 1959.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. James Best did the Dukes of Hazzard. Yeah, I remember Dukes of Hazzard. What else was there? There's the A-Team. Battlestar Galactica. So many good shows. I used to watch, because obviously this is well before my time, but the repeats were on. I used to watch the 1950s Buster Crabbe, Flash Gordon when I was a kid.
I don't think I ever watched that.
Oh, and Tarzan, Ron Eli's Tarzan with Cheetah. Did you watch Tarzan? Did you not watch Tarzan?
I don't know. I feel like I might have watched some of it. I don't remember.
Yeah, I bet you did. And and there's a show that I didn't massively. I think I must have watched it, but I always remember the song, and sometimes I play it on YouTube. The theme song. It was Hardcastle and McCormick. Remember that cop show, Hardcastle and McCormick?
No, I don't think I watched that.
An amazing song at the beginning. It was really cool. It was like proper, like it was a theme song. It wasn't very long, but it felt like it was like it would really fit in the Rocky soundtrack. It was that kind of like rock song. It was well good. Hardcastle and McCormick. It was Brian Keith, I think it was. Yeah, Brian Keith. Do you remember him?
No.
So I was right. Huge crush on Jan Michael Vincent.
Yeah.
Crockett and Tubbs for life. Yeah, Crockett and Tubbs, amazing. Yeah, I love that show.
My favorite
show was Prisoner.
That's in my queue. I've been meaning to watch that.
Yeah, I rewatched it recently. Yeah, they're all showing it on our repeats, and yeah, it's brilliant.
I heard that's that's one of those really like bizarre ones, right?
Well, yeah, it's quite unique. I love the fact that when was it? When we went to Wales, just after I got ill, and then I started recovering. I was still in a wheelchair actually at the time, but we had this holiday booked in Wales, and I said, "Well, that's fine. We'll take the wheelchair with us." And actually, because it was all rocky and it was all mountainous and stuff, we didn't actually use the wheelchair much. But we went to Port Merion, which is where they filmed The Prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
So that was
cool.
3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 3 years ago. And that was awesome being in Port Merion. It's a beautiful place. But they literally filmed the show there without really changing it much, and there's like a souvenir shop and stuff. But ultimately, it's just like The Prisoner. It's cool. That was the first time I've been to North Wales. yeah, the soundtrack was amazing. Absolutely. I remember when Sheena Easton was Crockett's girlfriend. Yeah, she did well. But yeah, she did really well in the 80s because obviously she had the duet with Prince as well. Got a jet. Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks, MJ. Bye, MJ. Scarecrow, Mrs. King. Yeah, that was Bruce Boxleitner and Kate Jackson, I think.
I don't know that.
I think it was Kate Jackson from Charlie's Angels. But Bruce Boxleitner ends up being like the main character in Babylon 5, doesn't he? I'm sure that's Scarecrow, Mrs. King. There was another one, because there was two programs on at the same time that had exactly the same kind of feel, kind of Indiana Jones rip-offs. The Scarecrow, Mrs. King, and Bring 'Em Back Alive. Do you remember Bring 'Em Back Alive?
No.
I can't remember who was in that. It was the blonde smiley guy that was in Bring 'Em Back Alive. It was either that or the other way around. What's his name? He was a proper clean cut actor that was in. He was in films a few times. And there was Manimal as well. That was another one around that time. Do you remember Manimal? And he'd either change into a panther or he'd change into a. What did he do? He kept using the same. I think he changed into a bird or a snake. I think maybe. It was like the same sequence. He had a certain budget, and he could change into an animal, and it was either a panther and a bird or something else. Those three animals. But yeah, that was around the same time. Classic 80s American shows. You don't remember any of these? Remember Street Hawk? You remember Street Hawk? Do you not remember Street Hawk? It was like Knight Rider, but it was a motorbike. No.
I don't know.
I watched loads of TV when I was a kid.
Evidently.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Moonlighting. Yeah, made Bruce Willis famous.
Oh, yeah.
I'll always remember. There's one. Because I watched Moonlighting like everyone else did, and I know my sister watched it as well. She was older than me. But I'll always remember one scene, and I'll never forget. I thought it was amazing, and I think it might even be. I'd love to know what year it was, how old it was, but it was an episode of Moonlighting when they were doing their own version of Taming of the Shrew, and at the end, Bruce Willis sings a song called "Good Love," I think it's called. And it's just a moment where Bruce Willis just sings for 4 minutes, and it's really cool. And they like have this sort of dance routine in this church while he's singing this song. It's well good. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. I don't remember. I mean, I remember that show. I don't know. I don't think I watched that show all the way through. You know, I think I watched a little bit of it, but I don't remember. You know, stuff's like I don't know. I don't have like your memory. I don't remember some of this stuff that well. Like I can't remember if I watched like the whole thing or not, you know.
I can remember that, but I can't remember what I did yesterday. I mean, if the Moonlighting was a funny mix, it was like a crime show, but a sitcom as well, and like a romantic comedy, like more a rom-com than a sitcom. Actually, it was like a rom-com mixed with crime stuff, wasn't it? It was very light-hearted.
Yeah.
But yeah, wow, awesome stuff.
Yeah, we didn't have quite so many choices back then. There wasn't quite as much TV. No. You know, I didn't have that many channels.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember what else was like. I enjoyed watching back then, but
what I was channel appeared in the early 80s. That's when our fourth channel appeared. Channel 4. It was 83, I think it was. So we had BBC One and BBC Two. We had ITV, which was the independent one with adverts in it, because obviously BBC doesn't have adverts. And then Channel 4 came along, which was like supposed to be more daring and like would show stuff that like banned stuff and naughty things and things like that. But it ended up being like the home for American comedies, sitcoms as well. So like Channel 4 played like Cheers, Frasier, Roseanne, you know, tons of stuff like that. Even Kids in the Hall, even played like Canadian Kids in the Hall as well. Showed loads of stuff. Curb Your Enthusiasm, like all that stuff was played by Channel 4.
Yeah, that was probably our NBC, I think.
Yeah.
Probably. See, when I was a kid, we had 3 main channels. There was CBS, NBC, which was 2, NBC, which was 4, and ABC, which was 7. And then we had like Channel 11, which was like repeats and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once the 80s start, you do get cable TV, don't you? But because then you get MTV and stuff, don't you? But yeah, for our main channels, I was a kid when we got our 4th channel, and it was quite a big thing having Channel 4 because it was a bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, CBS are the ones behind Twilight Zone, aren't they?
Yeah,
that's CBS.
Yeah. That's what I've been watching. Even though I got the DVDs here, I've been watching them on that the Paramount Plus, which is CBS's service.
Yeah,
that's actually one of our. We would probably need to cut a streaming service or two, but that is one of our top ones that we'll never get rid of because it has all the Twilight Zone on it. It has all the Star Trek, which we got to talk about in a second, but it has all the Star Trek stuff on it. My family, in particular, one of my daughters, really into all the Survivor seasons, so she watches that.
Yeah.
So that's like a critical one for us. And they just wrapped Showtime. You guys have Showtime out there?
Showtime. What's that?
It was like an 8. Yeah, did you guys have HBO out there?
We have HBO stuff, so it comes up on. Depends what it is. A lot of it comes up on Sky Atlantic, which is one of the Sky channels that picks up a lot of the HBO stuff. So Game of Thrones was HBO, wasn't it? And that was that was on Sky Atlantic. So I have to get a different service to get Sky Atlantic.
Okay.
But some of them, it depends. Some of them appear on our normal Sky channels, so it depends on what the show is. I think sometimes. My wife is massively into the reboot of Magnum. So
Magnum PI.
Yeah, Magnum PI. So I watched that as a kid, but we're watching it together, the new version, and that's on Sky One. I think it's on Sky One, but I don't know what it is in America. I don't know what channel it's on in America, but we get that on just normal Sky. But yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But I don't know what Showtime is. Is it really good then?
Yeah, no, it's a Showtime is it was like so HBO was like years ago. It was like it was like the big cable channel, that had a lot of movies and stuff, and then eventually got originals and stuff. Showtime was like one of its big competitors. Showtime and Cinemax are like its major competitors. Now, over here, HBO has evolved into, it's no longer called HBO. It became HBO Max and now just Max. And it's one of the powerhouse streaming services called Max. Yeah. Showtime just got absorbed into Paramount Plus, CBS's thing. They just acquired that. Basically.
Yeah. So we probably do. What's on Showtime? Because we probably do get bits of Showtime.
So one phenomenal show that's on Showtime, which my wife and I both like, which is rare. It's rare when we find something that we're both into, is Yellow Jackets. Are you familiar with the show?
Yeah, we've got Yellow Jackets. I think we've got that on Netflix.
Oh.
I think that's on our Netflix, I think. It's either that or on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's so crazy, right? These shows get licensed to different people in different countries.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's like we were when The Walking Dead was on, which we need to do a Walking Dead episode of this. We'll just get
Robert Kirkman on. Just email Robert Kirkman.
I was thinking of the guy who played. I couldn't think of the guy who played Rick, which is ridiculous, isn't it? I was going to say his name, but that's even funnier. Hey,
Andrew Lincoln.
What's his name? Yeah, Andrew Lincoln. Andrew Lincoln on. But yeah, that's Robert Kirkman's funny. Yeah. We're on a roll now. But when it first appeared, because there's two main ways of getting cable over here. You get either Sky or you get Virgin Media. We've got Virgin Media, which is why our Sky channels, we don't get all the Sky channels because we got Virgin Media, but it does mean we've got some things that Sky people don't get. And we had the channel that was the only channel that had Walking Dead on it. So that was really cool. So if you had Sky, you'd have to watch it some other way. But we had the channel that had Walking Dead on it. And then it was so weird when it disappeared for a minute and then came back on Disney Plus, because it seems like such a not a Disney Plus thing. But
The Walking Dead?
Walking Dead's on Disney Plus over here.
Oh my gosh.
They should do a crossover, like Mickey Mouse being reanimated.
See over here, AMC has its own
Yeah, they got its
subscription,
own. Yeah.
which is not bad. I have that one. I'm debating whether to keep it or not, but I have that one because it's got the Walking Dead stuff, all the the AMC stuff, but it's also combined with Shudder. Which I don't know if you have Shudder over there, but it's like the horror. It's like a horror. So it's got a few things wrapped into one.
You have to pay for Shudder separately. So it's like an additional £5 a month or something if you want Shudder.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, see you, Fred.
Oh, yeah. Fred's gone. Yeah. Bye, Fred. Yeah, it's weird. The whole streaming service thing. It's a bit annoying. We've just got Netflix back because I wanted to watch Far Beyond the Stars. And I personally don't mind having all of them, but it's a bit of a bone of contention in the house because, like, my wife would literally not have any of them. She's not even bothered about TV much.
Yeah.
So, and she doesn't have a look to see what's on what. So we do watch some stuff together. So she really enjoyed Squid Game. She really enjoyed Better Call Saul. We watch stuff together, but she doesn't think about what they're on. So I'm always trying to, like, sell the idea of having a certain amount of streaming services. But we had, before they changed the rules and you could share accounts, we had Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Netflix, and Now TV. So Now TV gave us all the Sky stuff. So we had pretty much most things, and then Apple TV came out, and then Paramount's come out. So we definitely don't have everything now, but we didn't even have Netflix for a while because they changed the rules. So we were taking Netflix off my son-in-law's Netflix account, and we had Disney Plus off my son's girlfriend's account, but we pay for everything else ourselves. So we haven't got Disney Plus back again yet, but I really want that because that's got all the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah,
it's got the Marvel stuff. It's got the Walking Dead, and it's got the Muppet stuff as well. So I want Disney Plus back, but Netflix, I really need it back for Star Trek. So
that's so crazy how it's all so different. Like,
but I can't watch Strange New Worlds because that's not on Netflix. You have to get Paramount Plus to get Strange New Worlds.
Yeah. Paramount Plus has all the Star Treks, all the old ones, all the new ones. They're coming out with Discovery. I think season 5 Discovery just premiered tonight over here.
Oh, did it?
And
I like Discovery.
Yeah.
And
I just saw they are producing that Section 31. That's going to be cool.
Yeah. No, I'm a bit gutted that we have to get Paramount Plus to see that now. But it's just an extra. I mean, I suppose.
But the good thing.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, the good thing about the streaming services, though, is unless you need to watch like the current season or something, you can just get it temporarily and just binge whatever show you want to watch in a month or two. And then, there's no obligation to keep it. You can just get it for a month at a time.
Yeah, we'll do that with House of the Dragon. When Series 2 comes out of House of the Dragon, we'll get Now TV for a bit, and we'll watch that and then take it off again. So you can do that. I think,
or you could just wait. You could just wait till the season's over, and then just get it for 1 month and watch the whole season, and then and then cancel it.
Yeah. And if you're not really talking to anyone else about it, it doesn't really matter, does it? If you're say you're at work and everyone's talking about it, you might think, oh, I want to watch it with everyone else.
Yeah, but I mean, that's an issue sometimes.
But we watched Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul after everybody else.
Yeah.
We just about caught up on. I think we watched the last season of both of them at the same time as everyone else, but we were late starting them. We just sort of watched. Yeah. I think we watched all of Breaking Bad in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, we binged. We were behind on that too, so we binged the first 4 seasons, and then we watched the last season live, the 5th season. But
it's a similar experience.
That was crazy. That was one of those ones where it's like just 1 episode, and then all of a sudden it's 2 a.m, 4 episodes later, and that happened like night after night. It was horrible. Oh, you got
Yeah.
to click on this comment from Brian. Brian was asking about Three's
Oh,
Company.
okay.
There.
Which of the revolving
So
blonde
which the
Three's Company
revolving
roommates
blonde
did
Three's
you
Company
prefer?
missing bird. So that's a tough call. I think everybody would rule out Cindy. I mean, I think she automatically gets cut. I would assume everybody agree with that. So it's really between Chrissy, who's played by Suzanne Summers, the first one, and Terry, what was that actress's name? She was the third one. And I would have to say Chrissy, I think. I bet most people would say Chrissy. She was the ditziest, one, but she provided a lot of comedy, I thought. What about you? Did you watch that show, Gareth? Three's Company?
I've seen bits of it in retrospect as an adult. But I mean, I can join in on just saying I quite fancy Michael J. Fox's sister in Family Ties.
Oh, what was her name?
Was she called Mallory? Was she called Mallory?
Mallory, yeah.
Yeah.
You had a crush on Mallory?
Yeah. Well, any female, I think, to be fair.
Family Ties was a decent show. I watched that. That was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, and his mum.
And his mom in the show?
Suzanne Day.
Yeah, I remember her vaguely.
Well, I mean, we're the age where, because also you got, we're talking about that period. Well, actually, it's after this period, but we're talking about the period of Family Ties. You've also got the Fall Guy. Remember that? Lee Majors.
Yeah,
and,
I didn't really watch that.
TJ Hooker with Heather Locklear.
Yeah.
And the Shat. Anything with the Shat in it is worth watching, isn't it?
Anything with a what? What'd you say? I think you used one of those English terms.
William Shatner.
Shat? Oh, William Shatner. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny when you see these, like watching these Twilight Zones, like we're used to these, like I'm used to Shatner from Star Trek, but it's funny going back and seeing him show up in the Twilight Zone, like this was happening with, as I was doing this rewatch with, who's that actor that's the professor from Gilligan's Island?
Oh, yeah. I forgot his name, but he's on an early one, isn't he?
He keeps popping up in the Twilight Zone a couple times.
Is it Jonathan something? Oh,
I don't remember.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, well, there's loads of because Angela Cartwright's in it a few times, and obviously you got someone mentioned that Martin Landau was in 2 episodes. There's loads of it. Charles Bronson and all of the cast of Bewitched is in it. So many people. And Burgess Meredith was in 4. Jack Klugman's really good in the Twilight Zone. Because he played Quincy, didn't he? We all watched Quincy as a kid as well, didn't we? Did you watch Quincy?
Yeah, a little bit.
He's brilliant in the Twilight Zone because he's got this sort of gravity to him, and Robert Redford was in the episode as well.
Robert Redford was?
Yeah, Robert Redford plays Death in one of the episodes.
Oh, I got to finish this rewatch.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
I don't remember.
Oh, here we go. So yeah, Medium John Silver says Russell Johnson. That was his name.
And back there on Twilight Zone, yeah.
I was thinking about the guy that was in Lost in Space. That's why I got. I don't even know if that guy's Johnson. Someone.
He was Russell Johnson, and I'm assuming this was intentional. He was in back there, but he was also in. He was in, and I don't remember if he was in any others, but he was in 2 time travel Twilight Zone episodes. He was in back there, which is the one where he actually goes back in time.
Yeah.
And he like
and they kind of kick him away, don't they?
To, like,
in that nightclub scene, isn't it? And they kick him out of the nightclub. Is that back there?
Yeah. Well, they was it the nightclub?
Is it the one who played
Well,
the actor? Did he play the actor in that one?
Well, he went back in time. So he started out in he went back. They were debating time travel in a gentleman's club, and he goes back in time to Abraham Lincoln's, and the whole debate was like if he could change history and stuff. So he goes back to the time of Abraham
and no one
Lincoln.
believes him, so he's not getting anywhere. That's right.
Yeah. So that was the back there that medium John Silver's talking about. But he went back in time there. But then he was in a different episode. I gotta remember the name where Execution, maybe it was called, where he is a scientist that pulls somebody into the future.
Yeah, that's good. That one. He's like a thief, isn't he?
It was a guy that was going to get hanged, like in the old West.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That episode. I didn't remember that at all when I saw it, and I thought that was good. That episode. Yeah.
I mean, they must have purposely cast him for both of those. You know what I mean? Like, that must have been intentional that he was in the two time travel episodes.
Yeah, I think they do that sometimes. I mean, the best example of intentional casting is another time travel one. But it's when they did, I thought, what's it called? No Time Like the Past. And it's the one with Buster Keaton in it. And it's done like a silent movie in the old like the old period. And when he goes and he uses a time machine and goes to the future. And then he's got dialogue then. It's so brilliant. It's really good.
I'm not sure I remember that one. Wait, so what?
It's like an old Buster Keaton. It must have been one of the last jobs he did.
What's the title?
No Time Like the Past.
I feel like I've seen that. What season was that?
You might recognize the title, Dave, because you've got the best of album by Bemis.
Oh, yeah, that could be.
It's called No Time Like the Past. Yeah. What season it's in? Season 3, I think.
Season 3.
It's in season 3. It's really good. Oh, there's some amazing. Oh, I've just found back there. Yeah, that's it. Penny for your thoughts.
Oh, 2. I forgot about 2.
Yeah, 2. Yeah, Charles Bronson and Elizabeth Montgomery in it. That one.
That's a great episode. Yeah, that's a great one.
Oh, Courtney's here. Awesome. Hi, Courtney. Thanks for popping in. That's awesome.
I can't be sitting here reading this book while we're live.
Yeah. Brian says the chat is just actually the force of nature. Yeah, he's a legend. Evidently, he was in the Brothers Karamazov at some point. I've got to see that. Yeah. Execution. Johnson rescues a hangman. Yeah, that's such a good episode.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I'm really loving seeing them again. I really am. I mean, I've always loved the series and I've always had my favorites. But one of the things I'm really enjoying about going through every single episode and not just picking my favorites is that there are some that are becoming my favorites I've forgotten about. I didn't realize they were going to be so good, you know. So that's really nice.
It's funny as I go through it because I'll tell you, just me personally, I think you and I are a little different this way, but I tend not to like older stuff. You know, I like all the new, the new visuals and cinematography. I just like newer production better than older production. So there's like a lot of I tried to watch like that old I think I told you because I'm all into all the zombie stuff and like the new Dawn of the Dead. Try to go back and watch that original Dawn of the Dead stuff. I mean, the Romero stuff, and like I know that you love it, right? You love it,
yeah, I love
right?
It. I love it. I love it.
I can't even finish it because of the production value is it's just so ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, so I tend to not appreciate the older stuff like that.
Yeah, I can get past
Twilight Zone.
Go on.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go on.
Yeah, but the Twilight Zone, to me, I look at the Twilight Zone and I'm like, oh my God, this totally holds up. And so I'm like, I'm trying to figure out like myself, like I suspect that I probably have like a very significant bias to the Twilight Zone because it means, like you, like it means a lot to me because it's been something that's been with me over the course of my
Yeah,
life. Like my
yeah,
dad and I used to watch that together all the time. You know what I mean? So it's important for that reason. I've also there's been many points in my life where every single year they run those marathon in the US, at least they run marathons at New Year's Eve. So it's like 3
awesome.
days straight. They just play Twilight Zone. I don't know. Do you have that over there?
We used to have more of that kind of thing. I think since cables happened, we have less of it. But Christmas, I used to get this magazine that, again, everyone used to get it. Now people don't get it as much. But every Christmas, we all used to buy the Radio Times. It was called, and it was issued by the BBC, and it was all what's on at Christmas on TV at Christmas. So it was like the 2-week period when everyone's off, when you had a look to see what was on, and you circle the things you're going to watch. And in that period, so this is a while back, every year there was some kind of themed programming. So you might get a bunch of Charlie Chaplin stuff, you might get a bunch of Twilight Zone stuff, you might get a bunch of Marx Brothers films. You might get these things that just pop up every day. They're showing something, or they're showing like hours and hours of something. And it was so exciting because it was only really Christmas you'd get something like that. But yeah, it doesn't really happen as much now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is, for some reason, this is a thing in the US where this is, I mean, we are talking about decades now. This has been for decades. Every New Year's for like 3 days, they just play every single Twilight Zone episode. It just goes on morning, night for 3 years. This is why I say I've seen almost all of them multiple times, but there's the occasional one that I still haven't seen yet because, like, I wasn't up at 4 a.m,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
But this is where I saw a lot of them. So that's another nostalgic factor for me because throughout my life, basically every year I've watched some Twilight Zone at New Year's, and it's at different stages, right? It was like when I was in law school, when the kids were little, when I, just all these different things. So the show means a lot. It has a lot of memories for me throughout the course of decades of my life. And so I wonder if I'm just not unfairly, but just disproportionately biased in favor of the show. And that's why I think it holds up so well.
But I think, I know what you're saying, but I do think the acting is phenomenal in it. And they're good scripts. I mean, there are some better episodes than other episodes, and some episodes seem dated because they become a cliche now. And they weren't a cliche then, but they're a cliche now. So that's true. But the script is so good, and the acting always amazes me. And I just think that's what keeps it relevant, I think,
I do. I think it does, just genuinely, independent of my nostalgia. I think it does just genuinely hold up very well for an old
And there will
show.
be, because you've already said there's some that you don't like, and now there's some that I don't. There's not many, but there's some that I don't. So there are better. There's a spectrum of great episodes and a huge amount of okay episodes and a few bad ones, I reckon. But the quality of, even in the bad ones, the quality of the production and everyone's kind of the effort that goes into the episodes is phenomenal, really. I think, even in the bad ones, I think.
That was really, sorry, go ahead, catch up.
No, I was only going to get up a couple of comments, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that was really interesting to hear Mark's favorite episodes. That's not what I expected.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I thought it was going to be something that comes up a lot in the favorite, but Walking Distance does not come up a lot in conversation.
Yeah, right. Like that is, I did not view that as like an I mean, it was good. I mean, they're all good, but I mean, it was a decent episode. I did not view that as an exceptional episode. It was interesting to hear him talk about why.
I wanted to ask him about one of the things that was really fascinating in here that I do talk about on the video where I get to this episode. But I reckon I should go over the episodes again and credit Mark for some of the stuff I say in the videos. But anyway, there's an episode called Mr. Beavis, right? And
Yeah.
have you seen that one yet, Mr. Beavis?
Yeah.
So it's like a comedy one with Orson Bean as the main guy, and he's like really kind of clumsy, and he gets sacked in at work, and there's like a guardian angel that tries to fix his life. It's a really cool episode.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Well, that was intended for Burgess Meredith, and Rod Serling wanted to start a separate series about Mr. Beavis with Burgess Meredith in it, and it was going to be like a series of and it was going to be a series of different episodes about him and this guardian angel. And then Burgess Meredith said he didn't want to do it.
Wow,
that's amazing, isn't it? So I wanted to ask him about that. I wanted to ask him more about what he said in the book about that, because there was a really it seemed like a really close relationship between Rod Serling and Burgess Meredith. He kept giving him these cool scripts, and say, "Oh, get Burgess Meredith to do that." I mean, you can't blame him.
What's the name of the actor that did it?
Orson Bean. So I was watching it thinking, I'm sure, one, I know that name, and two, I recognized the face, but it didn't click at all until I looked him up. And he's the guy who owns the company in Being John Malkovich. So the guy that interviews John Cusack and says, and he can't hear properly. It's just an amazing character.
No way.
Yeah. He's
the old
Mr.
guy.
Beavis. The old guy. Yeah. The old guy is Mr. Beavis in Twilight.
I would not have recognized him at all.
It's mad, isn't it?
Wow, I would not recognize him at all. Yeah. I mean, I still don't see it, even though you're telling me. Yeah,
there was just something about it. I was just thinking, I recognize that guy, but I wondered if it was like at a different age. But I was absolutely right, because as an old man, when I looked him up, I was like, oh my god, it's him, And then I looked up, and I went to the trailer to watch a bit of John Malkovich again. I thought, oh my god, yeah, it's the same guy, but 60
Talking
years
about
later.
Things that hold up well. That's a movie that I was surprised at how well it held up. When that one's not that old, but still, I was surprised. Yeah, Being John Malkovich. I was surprised how well that held up.
I love that film so much.
That film was awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I could go watch it again right now. That's one of those things you can just like watch over and over again. It was like.
See, so that's a good movie. Because we were talking about that in the context of Dave Made a Maze, wasn't it? And and it's definitely the Dave Made a Maze is not a masterpiece, but Being John Malkovich is definitely.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. So I went to cinema earlier to watch a Coen Brothers film, but it's not both of them. It's only Ethan Coen. How mad is that? So normally they work together, right? And they have an agreement that Joel Coen gets the director's credit, Ethan Coen gets the writer's credit, but they both do both things. Yeah, that's how their careers been. But there's a new film out that's just written and directed by Ethan Coen.
Okay.
Are you a Coen Brothers fan?
I mean, not that I know of, but.
Oh, okay. I'll throw some films at you, see if you like them. So, do you like The Big Lebowski?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a masterpiece. Barton Fink.
What one?
Barton Fink.
No, I don't know that.
No, I don't know that one. Brother, Where Art Thou? That's one of theirs.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like that one?
Yeah.
And Burn After Reading. This is hilarious. Have you seen Burn After Reading?
I don't think so.
You should watch that. At some point before the next session, watch Burn After Reading. You'll love it. It's really funny and it's brilliant. Yeah, it's the best thing Brad Pitt's ever done. He's really genuinely funny and good in that film. But yeah, Burn After Reading. But also they did loads. Raising Arizona. Do you know Raising Arizona?
With Nicolas Cage?
Yeah. I love that film. That's one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
that might be in my Desert Island Flicks, Raising Arizona. Yeah, I think it's amazing. It's like a live action cartoon, really. That film. Because they keep chasing, they're trying to get the baby, aren't they, all the time? You know.
Yeah. How you gonna do that? You're gonna have to have me guest host Desert Island Flicks to interview you.
Yeah, we'll do that. We can do that.
So you can give yours.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah, it'll be good. We'll do that on the I don't know, on the anniversary or something of when I started doing it. We need to talk about what we're reading as well, I reckon. That'd be good. But let's we got Medium John Silver says there used to be a Turkey Day marathon of Mystery Science Theatre. Did you like Mystery Science Theatre? Yeah,
I didn't watch that much of it. A little bit of it. Yeah, I mean it was funny, but I didn't watch that much of it.
Yeah,
you were a big fan?
It's a funny show because it would be like you'd watch it and you'd go after about 15 minutes, you go, well, why am I watching this? And then they'd say something really funny and you go, oh, that's why. I'm watching it for like every now and again. They'll say something that's actually really funny. But then other times they'll just be like, you know, oh, that's a bad coat or something like that, you know, something really unfunny. And then so now and again they'll go, that's good. That's good. You know. Brian says he's going to go try and get some reading done before my aging carcass decides it's bedtime. Brilliant. Thanks, Brian, for popping in. That's awesome.
Thanks, Brian.
It's Joe, the third part of our Silver Foxes. Every New Year's Eve, I love the Honeymooners.
Oh, that's another good one. The Honeymooners. Did you ever watch The Honeymooners, Gareth?
That's not really been shown over here, so I know just because I'm a bit of a geek, so I've looked it up. Oh. But actually, it was never really shown over here.
Oh, yeah, I've seen a lot of that. My dad, I mean, that's an oldie. My dad loved that show.
Wasn't the Honeymooners?
I'm sure he still loves it. I don't know. He doesn't talk about it anymore, but I'm sure he still loves it.
Was the Honeymooners the one that the Flintstones was based on?
Was the Flintstones based on that? I can see that, but
it was based on one sitcom I thought was the Honeymooners. Maybe someone can confirm it in the chat, but I think it was the Honeymooners.
I can see that.
Yeah. I forgot the name of the main guy. The main guy is really famous, isn't he?
Yeah. What's his name? Jackie
Gleason.
Jackie Gleason. Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure that's the show that they had as like the template, put Stone Age version of the Honeymooners, I think. But yeah, no, I am a bit of a I'm one of those people that knows about stuff that nobody ever watched, but I just looked into it, you know. It's like no one I know, very few people I know even know who the Marx Brothers were, but I bang into that as well. So and I've watched Charlie Chaplin and all that, Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd. So yeah, I do like old stuff, but I like new stuff as well. Obviously, I'm afflicted with a terrible condition where I like pretty much most of what I watch. It's terrible.
You like everything.
I got a really bad critical eye. There's a friend of mine who has kind of criticised me for that, and I'm in this chat with him on WhatsApp with a bunch of other people, and I said that I really like the film that I watched today. And I could imagine his response, just thinking, "Well, that doesn't really matter, does it? You like everything." It was good. It felt very Coen Brothers. Oh, what else did they do? You would have definitely seen a bunch of their films. They're really good. Fargo as well. Fargo's one of theirs.
You know, I don't think I saw that.
Have you not seen Fargo?
I don't think so.
Oh, you got to see that one as well. That's not as funny as Burn After Reading. It's more serious, but it's it's very typical Coen Brothers plot where somebody very ordinary decides to get involved with like some sort of crime plot and goes way out of their head. Way out of their depth. Sorry, not way out of their head. Way out of their depth, and it just goes like the plot just goes like left field, you know. So yeah, no, their plots are really cool. Nathan says, me and my mates used to play Mystery Science Theatre. We rent a terrible movie and made fun of it. Did you film it? Because that's what they were doing, wasn't it? Another great marathon was Dick Van Dyke Show. Yeah, we can get that on Amazon Prime, I think it is. We can get the Doris Day Show and the Dick Van Dyke Show, I think, on Amazon Prime. I haven't seen them, though. Oh, Jenny's gone.
Oh,
get some sleep. Okay, bye, Jenny. To be fair, it's pretty late.
Leaving. That means we're going to have to call it soon if Jenny's leaving.
I know, if Jenny's leaving, what's the point? Hey, Margaret's back.
Hey, Margaret. I'm not helping my reputation.
I've watched live stream a couple of times more because it was so cool. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it? Having Margaret on. And
sure was, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not helping my reputation with always trolling live streams.
By the way, Margaret, after our show, Margaret validated my claim of the toddler version of Wagon Wheels in the U.S.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. Did I send you the picture?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, yeah.
Wagon Wheels? Yeah.
I don't understand what happened with Wagon Wheels because I thought I had some Wagon Wheels and I definitely didn't eat all of them last week, but I don't know where they've gone.
Oh.
I've lost some Wagon Wheels.
Did you talk to Ralph?
Ralph, was it you?
Because my Wagon Wheels disappeared. That Olive would be my first suspect.
Yeah. To be fair, it would be him. It came up on Instagram after you talked about it. Yeah. Love it.
You see?
That's the way the algorithm works. Isn't it? It's true. If I say,
you know what?
Yeah.
I never even thought about that, but that's probably why it showed up on our Instagram.
Yeah, if I say fried egg sandwiches,
yeah,
then you wait. I'll go in the kitchen and there'll be a fried egg sandwich there.
That's a little different. That's a little different thing.
That's the way the algorithm works. That's definitely the way it works.
I might go make myself a fried egg sandwich after we.
Oh yeah, fried egg sandwich. Do you like fried egg sandwiches?
I love fried egg sandwiches. That sounds really good, actually.
I've got some bread. I've got some bread by my desk. I don't know.
I thought you leaned off. I thought you were making yourself a note, like make self fried egg sandwich.
Make a bread sandwich. I just said make a bread sandwich. How poor do you have to be to have a bread sandwich? No, I'm not gonna have a bread sandwich. I have a fried egg sandwich. I haven't really eaten much. Well, I'll say that. I had that carvery earlier and I had a lot and I couldn't finish it. I had a lot. And then what did I do? I had some soup. So yeah, I need to have a fried egg sandwich. I'm gonna do that. It's early. It's only 2:15, so the night is still young. Under his ear, more like. I think Margaret needs to explain what under his ear means, or do you understand what that means?
Is that a reference to the phone listening to you when you say wagon wheels or fried egg sandwich?
Or is it under? Or my wagon wheel was under my dog's ear?
You guys haven't read Handmaid's Tale. I'm reading Handmaid's Tale right now. Literally, Margaret. I just started it.
Yeah, he's literally reading it right now. He's supposed to be talking to me, but he's reading Handmaid's Tale right now. What an ignorant git.
That's a reference to Handmaid's Tale?
Apparently. No, I think Under His Ear was the original title of Handmaid's Tale. And then she went with Handmaid's Tale because she realized it didn't make any sense.
Isn't that where Under His Eye comes from? She said.
Eh? Under His Ear. A wish sandwich, 2 slices of bread, and you wish you had some meat. A quote from Elwood Blues. Talking of Elwood Blues, I watched Ghostbusters a few days ago.
The new one, Frozen Empire?
Yep.
Ooh, did you have to go to the theater for that?
Yep. Guess what?
And
I
you
liked
loved
it.
it.
I loved it.
That's a shocker. That's a shocker. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. You should put that in your WhatsApp chat because they're going to be surprised.
Yeah, I didn't even bother telling them that because they're clearly just going to be a bunch of cynical people go, well, blah 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 blah. But no,
I already know that I'm going to like it. It doesn't matter how it is. I already know I'm going to like it just for the nostalgia.
It's very Ghostbusters, and there's a great cameo in it from someone from the first film you're not expecting, and you're like, nice. Yeah, but it's not obvious. It's not the main cast. It's someone else. And you go, that's good. I like that.
Now you got me.
You're trying to think of who it is, aren't you?
Yeah, I got a couple guesses.
Yeah. Don't think too hard, and it'll be a nice surprise. But it's good cameo.
All right.
Yeah. But it's just a nice plot, and I really like the new characters. I think the granddaughter's a really cool character, and what's his face has done better this time as well. The mate that's the video guy. What's his name? VHS Man or something. I can't remember his name, but it's some sort of play on what he does. Paul Rudd's always good, right? Paul Rudd's always good. So, and the mother's got lots more to do as well this time. There's loads of reasons why it's really good. So, yeah, different plot as well. It's cool. Agent 00 Ice, let's party all night long. All night long. All night long. Isn't that where Under His Eye comes from? I could be mixing up my dystopias.
Let me Google it. Right back.
Mixing up your dystopias, that must be a really horrible thing to do. It autofilled. It's Handmaid's Tale. It is. I was making a joke about that, and the algorithm listening to us as an ear. Yeah. See how convoluted that joke is now, right? That is what Space Opera's like by Catherine Valente. So Margaret's just spent about 5 sentences telling us a joke, and that's how bad that bloody book is. Space Opera.
Space Opera. I haven't read anything from hers. I have. I actually didn't even hear of the Space Opera. I have her book. What's it called? I want to say Labyrinth. Maybe it's Labyrinth. No.
She wrote one about some
Palimpsest. Palimpsest, that's the one. It was an older one that she did. And I started it like twice, and I've never gotten very far in it.
Yeah, I don't think she's a good writer.
No?
My daughter read something by her, and she said it drove her nutty. She hated it. And it was a completely different book. It was about some sort of film actress or something. She said that was bad. She won
some awards, right?
I know she's really popular, but I don't get it. It's a no from me.
That's saying something.
Out and completely ruin it. Yeah, well, exactly. I'm Mr. I like it guy, and if I don't like something, surely that means it's terrible.
Right.
Surely, yeah. I should be the judge on if something's bad or not. And completely ruin it. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's timing. It's all about timing, which Catherine Valente doesn't understand. Yeah, it's good. It's good. They know timing. There's a lovely moment when I don't think I'll spoil it by saying it in a roundabout way. There's a lovely moment when I thought it was going to be Bill Murray behind a door, and what happens is really cool. It's a really cool line, and he's already in the film, but you think that moment it's going to be Bill Murray, and it's just really cool. I've been wanting to try Catherine Valente, but afraid I wouldn't get it. Well, I think you get it, but she just takes so long to tell you what she's trying to get at that you'll get it, but then think, was it worth the journey? I think. That's what I think. I don't know, just needs to be a little bit more direct. Get to your point, Catherine, or Cat. Clearly, Margaret and Catherine Valente are best buddies. Cat.
Clearly.
Cat Valente. But Margaret's in the writers' world. She knows all the famous writers. Natasha Pulley. Yeah, I need to read some Natasha Pulley. I've got 2 books by her that I need to read. I think one's to follow up the other one. She's got like clockwork something. Clock something. Margaret will tell us.
Oh.
But anyway, is she good then? I think she's good. The watchmaker of something. Fillmore. The watchmaker of Fillmore East. That's what I'm going to say.
Filgree Street.
There you go, Filgree Street. The watchmaker of Filgree Street. You
missed Joe. Joe confirmed that Flintstones was based on Honeymoon.
Flintstones. Oh, here we go. Yeah, based on Honeymoons. Brilliant. Okay, cool. So I wasn't going mad. That's the sort of thing that's in my head that doesn't need to be in my head. English people have never heard of the Honeymooners, but I know what it influenced. Okay, so we'll have to. So me and Margaret's going to buddy read this at some point after I've read Cage of Souls.
Sounds good.
I'm ready to go now. So I'm gonna mention Cage of Souls all the time, and it'll look like you're dragging us behind rather than me.
All right, I'm almost ready. I gotta get settled with everything.
Revenge is best cold.
You never answered. We got sidetracked before, and you never answered about whether you watched Yellow Jackets.
Oh no, I haven't seen it, but I know of it.
You need to see it. You need to watch.
Interesting jazz band as well, Yellow Jackets.
Huh?
They're kind of like a little bit avant-garde jazz, quite contemporary jazz. Yellow Jackets.
What a band called Yellow Jackets?
Yep.
Oh, this is a UK band.
I think they're American.
Oh,
it's kind of like John Zorn kind of style. Do you know John Zorn stuff?
No.
He's kind of a bit. He starts and you go, oh, this is nice, and then it gets really like intense and discordant, and you're like, whoa, this is too much. It's a bit like that.
Huh.
Jazz.
You would like the show Yellow Jackets. You really would. It is a cross between Lost and Lord of the Flies.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which I think is why it's called Yellow Jackets.
Right. Yeah.
It's very Lord of the Flies.
Actually, now you said that, that rings a bell. Yeah, I think I've seen trailers for it.
Yeah. I think you'd like it, man. I mean, I don't know. You may get scared. It's a little intense. So
I have a very brittle heart, Dave.
Yeah, if you can handle it, I think you'd like it. It is very intense. It's very intense.
Okay, Marcus is not for her then. She doesn't like intense, scary stuff. I thought it was going to reference the French union strikes and protests. Yeah, or maybe people with high vis jackets that help you out at night. Yeah, as well. But no. Has Margaret read any Jose Saramago? Have you read any Jose Saramago?
No, is that the Blindness?
Yeah, he wrote Blindness, which is
I haven't, but it's high on. It's actually what?
It's a masterpiece.
Okay, it's high on my list. I haven't read it yet though, but I
fully
intend to.
Probably going to read this soon, which is Seeing, which is the one he wrote as a sequel, if you like, to Blindness, but it's about an election where nobody votes, and the government start punishing people for not voting.
Oh.
Blindness is about people who go, the whole population's gone blind, and it's brutal. It's like
that really that really flips the script, right? You'd expect the government to, you'd expect a situation to happen where the government would punish people for voting, not for not voting. It's kind of odd, right?
Yeah, it seems really intriguing, and it's like, but he's a bit of a thought experiment kind of author. So
is that a new one? I haven't heard of that. That just come out?
Well, no. This is old. He's quite known. This is one of his famous ones. I've got loads of his books, but I've only read 3. But he's quite an important writer.
Are those translated or are those originally in English?
Well, he did know English, but they're translated from from Portuguese. He was Portuguese.
Yeah.
So this one's got translated credit. So yeah, I guess it might be that you might know. I've seen interviews where he's spoken in English, but that's one thing speaking in an interview, another thing writing a book, in it. So yeah, he's got quite a dry way of writing, but you definitely should read Blindness. It's so good.
Yeah.
He was he was quite a political thinker, but yeah, interesting. And there's one book as well that was really blasphemous that got him in some trouble, which was he did 2, one called Cain and one called The Gospel According to Jesus Christ, I think it's called. And it's just like, it just got a very alternative definition of who Jesus was. But he was an atheist, so he was trying to make a point.
Okay.
But yeah, that's definitely on my list for this month. And I might read Handmaid's Tale, especially as we're now referencing it in our show. So I'm not going to understand all the jokes if I don't read
That's true. That's true.
And there's obviously this one as well. This is the next Ray Bradbury.
So that's next for Fahrenheit 451. When are you starting that?
So I've got to finish If It Bleeds short story. But it's not a short story, it's more like a novella. It's 200 pages, so it's a short novel if you like. But I've already gone halfway through it, so I don't think it'll take me long to finish that. So I could read that. I could read Fahrenheit 451 next, or Handmaid's Tale next. Don't know. And I need to, and I'm definitely going to start Cage of Souls this month, like later in the month.
Okay.
But I'm not very fast reader, so I'm sure you'll catch up with me. I'm not a very fast reader.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not. I'm still reading the first comment we got. Well, it's not so much the reading, but it just makes me tired. So the amount of times I go to read and I just fall asleep after half an hour. That's my trouble with reading. So I don't know if this is a secret. I shouldn't say it on Booktube, but it just makes me really sleepy. That's why I'm a slow reader. I could be revved up with coffee.
Yeah, well, this is the problem. You make time to read, but that time it always has to be time when you're alert, because otherwise, you fall asleep. You can't do it. It's one of those things. A lot of things you can do while you're tired. Reading is not one of them.
No,
and
no,
to put me to sleep, And
if I am if I'm in that state where I can't sleep or I'm not tired, I will choose to sleep. Sorry, I'll choose to read knowing that it will make me tired. So that's a thing as well.
Yeah.
So but that's definitely why The Outsider was fine. I really pushed hard on that one because I knew there was a live stream coming up. You're doing a live stream on Handmaid's Tale, aren't you?
No, it's just a buddy read.
Oh, okay. But there was one book, I can't remember which one. There was one book, just the one I read before that, and I kept picking it up. It wasn't very long, but it took me ages just because I kept falling asleep.
Yeah.
It was so frustrating.
Yeah.
I read when I'm tired. It gives my brain a break. Well, that's cool. I don't know. My brain finds it. It doesn't find it restful. I don't think. I also eat chocolate. Yeah.
No.
That's a good shout. It's a good excuse to eat chocolate, isn't it? 4 pages at a time. See, that's the thing, isn't it? It can be like that, can't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Full Tilt. Who's Full Tilt by? Do you know who Full Tilt's by? Tell us, Margaret, who Full Tilt's by. Clearly an Irish writer. Oh, Derby and Murphy. Okay. Talking about that end of the country, I realised that I completely ignored Irvine Welsh and thought I should probably read Trainspotting. Have you heard of Irvine Welsh and Train? Well, you've probably heard of the film Trainspotting, have you?
Or the film Trainspotting, yeah.
Yeah, because he's a Scottish writer, really important Scottish writer. Quite edgy, I think.
Hold on one second. Talk to Margaret for a second.
Yeah. We've got 13 people in the chat, so it doesn't have to be just to Margaret. She rode a bicycle all over. So Derby and Murphy rode a bicycle, and that's what Full Tilt's about, is it? About riding a bicycle. That sounds really thrilling. Too edgy for me, crikey. Oh yeah, Irvine Welsh. Getting on lurkers. Yeah. Well, lurkers are very important, so we don't want to give the wrong impression. I mean, Olive's here. Olive, what do you think? Olive, have you been a good girl today? Olive. Wouldn't it be great if this live stream, if we had a regular spot where Dave walked off and I spoke to Olive for about half an hour, just saying, Olive. Worse than Ralph. Ralph's not replying either. Olive. No, she can't hear me. It's mostly biking from Afghanistan to Pakistan in the 60s. Okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah, Olive. Is that going to work better? Woof, woof, woof. It's not going to work. And she's what's going on? Yeah, we've got a new feature on the show where I talk to Olive, Dave.
What happened?
Me and Olive just had a little chat.
Oh,
it's very cool. Oi!
What did I miss here?
yeah. This is a new thing. So Agent 008 wants more, just me and Olive chatting. So I found out loads. So Olive said that she thinks that most of the time you're a really good owner, and she loves your company. She really enjoyed her dinner 2 days ago in particular. She loved that. Whatever you gave her 2 days ago, she loved that. And she really enjoys the live streams and thinks I'm really cool. That was the other thing she said.
Yeah, that all makes sense.
Yeah. She can hear you, even though through earphones. Yeah. She's like Alexa.
Did you hear? I just saw the I just saw some Instagram video where like the woman lost one of her AirPods, so she closed one in the case and like played the music. You can hear the music coming out of the pup's stomach.
That's amazing. Ever noticed that if you ask a cat a question, it will answer usually meow, but the dog won't respond? That is a good point. And did you also know, this is something I found out about cats. Cats learn to meow just to communicate to people. They don't meow to each other, apparently. They just meow to humans. And it was like something they developed to talk to humans.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I found out on a documentary about cats I saw on BBC Two. Some dogs do bark. That's true. It's true. Our dogs have started doing this in the morning. They just go to this crazy, like, they set each other off for about 5 minutes and then stop. I'm a little bit worried because we're going on holiday soon. I don't want them to bark. They never really used to bark. I don't want them to bark when we're away. That'd be annoying. She said it. Cat videos are fun. Yeah. Yeah. Meow. 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 Okay, so they've seen. So now, but I think it was historically they started doing it because I've seen cats meow to each other, but I think they've started it. Have a neighbour dog whose own echo sets him off. Yeah, dogs are pretty stupid sometimes, aren't they? It's got to be said. That's fantastic.
Oh,
so, what's your plans for reading for the next couple of weeks? Then, do you reckon, Dave?
Well, I'm gonna do Handmaid's Tale. Then I'm going to okay, so a couple things. I start a Handmaid's Tale, so I gotta read most of that still. I just barely started CB Angel, and I have to get on that because I know somebody else wants it.
Clearly, it'll be a work of genius. So it'll help my writing skills, won't it, to read CB Angel.
And then I really wanted to squeeze in City by Clifford B. Max. So try to squeeze that in before apparently moving on to Cage of Souls. But if I can't squeeze in, I won't squeeze in. But I guess I'm reading Cage of Souls. Easy read. Yeah, I think you'll read City quite quickly. I think. Okay. It's very fluffy. I mean, I think it's interesting that Mike says that it's his favorite science fiction book, doesn't he? And it's good. I think it's very good, but I'm amazed that he says it's his favorite sci-fi book. But I mean, Sean absolutely loves Zimac. But yeah, it's a very easy read. I don't think there's not a lot of levels. Do you know what I mean? But it's fun. Yeah.
We all like robots and dogs, and there's a lot of robots and there's a lot of dogs. It's all from a dog's perspective, isn't it? Which is cool. So Margaret's just reassuring Olive that she wasn't having to go at Olive earlier. Big dogs that are annoying. Olive can never be annoying, right?
Never. What's up? Are you thirsty? I think she might be thirsty or something. I don't know.
I think she was just asking how I am. I'm all right, thanks.
Maybe. What's up? She wants something. Either she has to go out or she's thirsty. I don't know. What's up? I don't know. Woo! All right, man. What are you thinking?
Well, we could call it as we've still got loads of people in the chat, which is lovely. Thanks for still being here, guys. And I probably need to make another cup of tea. It's been a good hour since the last one. So
and a fried egg sandwich.
And a fried egg sandwich. Definitely want a fried egg sandwich. Let me know in the chat who else eats fried egg sandwiches. Oh, can you hear Rosie? No.
Did she respond? She likes the fried egg sandwiches.
She just yeah, maybe. But she just decides to start meowing very loudly at 2 a.m. for no reason. And my wife's quite a light sleeper. If I was asleep now, which is clearly unlikely, but if I was asleep now, I'd be dead. Whereas my wife's a very light sleeper. I can sleep through anything, but I have to get to sleep first, which is always a tough call. Oliver's sweetheart, can't wait to see her again.
Yay!
Yeah. Fried egg sandwiches rule. Fried egg sandwiches are amazing, but my particular salt shaker at the minute is a little bit full on. It's a bit like trigger happy. So the amount of times I'm making stuff at the moment, especially eggs, and it's too salty because I just like squeeze it a bit, and it's just tons come out. So I need to clearly don't need to tell you all that, but make that 2 hard-boiled eggs. That is the same scene that's the stateroom scene in Night at the Opera, and my favourite joke in that. Right, it's amazing. And every time I think of this, it just makes me laugh. So I don't know if you know Night at the Opera. Have you seen Night at the Opera?
No, I don't think so. No.
So there's stowaways on this massive cruise liner, right? And they're in this small room, and they keep ordering room service, all these different people to come in, and there's tons of people in this room. And this woman comes in to pedicure his nails, if that's the right word. Is that the right word? Pedicure? Yeah. And she says, and right, just to kind of reinforce the idea, there's tons of people in the room. And she says, do you want long nails or short nails? And he says, the way this is going, I better have short nails. Amazing. It's one of the best jokes ever. I'll tell you what, I've got a joke. So my actual favourite joke, I think this is probably my favourite joke. I don't know. No, there's 2 favourite jokes. 2 favourite jokes. We'll finish the evening with 2 favourite jokes. First joke is the guy goes into a chip shop and he says, what? He says, what? Bye, Margaret. Yay for Friday sandwiches. So a guy goes into a chip shop and he says, and the chip shop guy says, what do you want, mate? And he says, fish and chips twice. And he says, yeah, wait, mate, I heard you the first time. That's one. And then there's a British comedian called Harry Hill.
Well,
and he said,
wait a second. Let me process that.
So he says, what do you want? And he says, fish and chips twice. And he says, all right, mate, I heard you the first time. So he's saying he wants 2 times fish and chips, but he just said fish and chips twice.
Oh, he didn't actually say fish and chips twice. He just said the phrase fish and chips twice.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's the joke.
That's not a very good joke, Gareth.
No, but what we've just done is, again, what Catherine Valente does in that book that I read, which is really unfunny, where every joke took 10 minutes. And the other thing was there's a British comedian called Harry Hill, and he said, I noticed I was going bald because it was taking longer and longer to wash my face. I think that's brilliant. So there we are. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yes, that wins. Have you got a favourite joke, Dave? Have you got a favourite joke? No.
I'm trying to put me on the spot. I can't think of a joke right now.
Joe told us that joke earlier. What was the joke that Joe told us earlier?
I can't even remember that one.
It was something about Earth. Can't remember.
Oh yeah, what is Earth? How does Earth something like how does Earth insult all the other planets, or what does Earth say to all the other planets?
Oh yeah.
You have no life.
Oh yeah, that's it. You have no life. Yeah. Yeah. The Harry Hill joke wins. No, it is a fantastic joke. I love it. Every time I think of it, it makes me laugh. It's one of those jokes that makes sense and also doesn't make sense, which is brilliant. Yeah, cool. Well, we don't know what we're doing next time yet, do we? But we'll have a 2-week gap like we're supposed to this time, hey? Because if you're still watching this, then the timing of this one was literally because this is when Mark was free. So it's only been a week gap. But we'll have a 2-week gap now, and we'll have a lovely person on to chat to. And we'll, I don't know, maybe Dave, watch Burn After Reading because it's brilliant.
Do you watch?
Watch Burn After Reading. Write down Burn After Reading for you to watch. We got another Marx Brothers quote. Chico says, "Your suit was taking too much room, so I sold it. Get anything for it? $1.40. That's my suit, all right."
That's the best joke.
There's tons of Marx Brothers jokes. Yeah. There's like just random stuff he says, like don't point that beard at me; it might go off. There's loads. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, should we call it then?
It's called
This
there,
is like
I guess.
we're saying when the live stream died, isn't it? Saying we're going to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So time of death, 3 hours 43. Thanks, Dave, for being my partner again, and for my co-host getting this guy on. How cool was that? We just had an hour and a half talking to Marc Scott Zicree, and he said he'd come back.
Awesome.
Maybe after he's seen all this that happens afterwards, he won't come back and go, why would I want to be with these guys again? But
let's hope he meant it.
Let's hope he does. We can talk about all those other things. He'll see that email from me. Go, I'm not going to talk about all those things. I don't want to talk about the Smurfs. Yeah, that'd be brilliant. No, he was so brilliant. So
he was great.
If you are watching,
I'd like to talk.
Thank you for coming on. I just thought we'd address Mark himself if he's watching this. He won't be watching this, will he, on the replay? He's a very busy man. He doesn't need to watch us.
He doesn't have time to watch quality sci-fi because he's so busy. He certainly doesn't have the time to watch this.
Yeah. What was it? He hadn't seen all of Babylon 5. Sounded like he'd seen Battlestar Galactica, which is very sensible. But he hadn't seen Farscape.
I know.
Yeah.
You have to decide. You have to figure out all your streaming issues and then decide whether we are moving forward with Farscape or not. We got to pick one, right?
Well, I've got the DVDs of Farscape, so if you want to start doing a...
Oh, you do?
If you want to do... Yeah, I've got them on DVD.
Okay.
I've actually got 2 versions of them on DVD because I've got a full box set and I've got them in separate things as well. But yeah, if you want to do a thing on Farscape, I'm well up for that. I need to check if I can get Lost. I think Lost is on Disney Plus, but I need to check to see if I can get Lost.
Okay. Well, check it out.
I need to see if I can get Lost.
That too. All right.
Good. You're okay for what? What things can you see?
I'm okay for either. I can see whatever. What are we talking about? I can do Lost. I can do Farscape. I can do Battlestar.
Battlestar Galactica as well. Yeah.
I think those were the ones that we talked about, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. If I'm gonna do it now, because hold on. Oh damn. I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna find out if Battlestar Galactica is on Netflix, because it'd be nice if we can. I mean, how are we going to do it? Are we going to do it by doing it like batches of episodes, or are we going to just mention it now and again, or what are we going to do? If we choose something to watch.
I mean, we could do it however. I mean, anything's okay. I mean, yeah, I thought maybe we would do. I was thinking that we would do the, like a short, regular live stream, like so people could go with us. But we could also record them, like your Twilight Zone episodes, or we need to give us some thought. I think.
Yeah. Okay. But I'm going to take what people have asked for, and I'm going to speed up the Twilight Zone things because you've said the same thing. I don't even know if Jenny actually made a comment about it, but we'll pretend that Jenny said, yeah, speed them up. So just for Medium John Silver, Medium John Silver said that he's subscribed to my channel because of the Twilight Zone thing. So he's probably thinking, can you get on with it, mate? Because it's just, tell you what, it's so much easier to watch stuff on using the PS4, but the controllers are terrible. They never charge, or as far in my experience, they don't anyway. I'm going to see if I've got Battlestar Galactica on here. But I'm a massive. I'm really up for Farscape. Go on.
No, I was just going to say I'm actually I'm actually happy to do all of those. I'd be very happy to do all of those. But if I had to express a preference, that if you have it, I mean, I'd probably be most excited to do Battlestar.
Okay.
We're talking
Well,
about newer Battlestar,
I
right?
loved it when I watched it. It was ages ago that I watched it, because it's not on Netflix. Is it on Prime? Let's see if it's on Amazon Prime. Trouble is, some things are on Amazon Prime. You still have to pay for it. I've got some DVDs upstairs, but I haven't got the whole series. I think, but I could try and find them. It was so. Did you know that Ron Moore did it? By the way, did you know that was his thing? So Ron Moore from Star Trek, he wrote a lot of the Klingon episodes of the Next Generation, and he came up with the concept of the new Battlestar Galactica.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Did you ever see my I don't know if you ever saw my my walls over here. Can you see that?
Oh, what's that? Is that the?
That one's it's kind of reversed here. I think it is. I can't. Hold on, I can't see. Is that? Yeah, there. Just trying to see if I can do this. But you can.
Hold on. I go back to. I can see it on my screen here, because sometimes when someone shows something up, I can see it better on my TV. So I'll come back to. I'll get your thing up on here.
So that was. I think the one that you've got there is James Callis and Trisha Heffler.
Oh yeah. I can see it. I can see it on the screen. Yeah, that's cool.
Right.
So what are they? Are they signed? Are they signatures? Autographs?
Aaron Douglas, and Grace Park over there. Yeah. They're signed.
Oh, nice. Was that in conventions, or do you get them on eBay or something?
Can you see those?
Yeah.
I'll take some pictures for you. That's Jamie Barber and Katie Sackhoff and James Edward Olmos. And what's her name? Mary McDonald.
I think Mary McDonald's amazing.
Yeah. And over there, you see that?
Yeah.
That's the 12 colonies of Kobold over there.
Nice. Okay. So you'll be so is it a bit like your Battlestar Galactica is my Farscape?
So I'm very excited to do either one. So
let's do it. So we'll start with
decide. We can do them all eventually. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try and I'll find a way of seeing Battlestar Galactica. We'll try and start with that. That'd be cool.
Okay. Yeah.
All
right. Check
and we'll try and bring everyone along with us. But it's definitely not on. I can look it up. I can see what. Hold on. If I just put in Google, how do you see Battlestar Galactica in UK? It'll tell me.
Yeah. See.
And then
I have an app. We have an app over here, but this is for US. We have an app called Just Watch, justwatch.com.
Yeah.
It's also an app. But I think that's telling me for US. So I don't know if you have a UK version of the app. Or if you go to JustWatch. If you go to justwatch.uk.
Yeah, I think what? Oh, hold on. Oh, wow. It's on the BBC iPlayer. That's cool.
That good?
So
That's
yeah, I can definitely see that. That's free.
Oh.
Yeah. So I can see. Right. So let's start watching Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So what I'll do is I'll see if my wife's up for it, because she liked it the first time. She doesn't normally like rewatching stuff, but she might do.
Okay.
But either way, I'll watch it. It'll be cool. I thought it was amazing. Right. I didn't like the last episode.
Yeah, I was not a huge fan of the ending, but that's what happens. It's it's like Lost. It was more for the journey than the ending.
Yeah, at least it was only the last episode. With Lost, I didn't like the last season.
And and I'll tell you, I mean, I didn't love the ending of Battlestar, but I liked it better than Lost. So
yeah. Well, when you see them talk about why they did it, it's just like, it's such a crap reason to do it. They literally said, we just wanted everyone to get together. And you're like, what? That's the terrible reason to write that episode. So yeah, not great. And it was just a shame that Battlestar Galactica ended up being all about religion when there was so much more to the show. Yeah. But yeah, no, I can't wait. It'll be cool. I think the best period of Battlestar Galactica, from what I remember, was the whole stuff when they get occupied and then they have to kind of rebel against them.
Yeah.
Like it's like about halfway through, is it? About 2/3 of the way through, maybe.
Yeah.
That stuff's fantastic. I mean, we're going to know who the Cylons are second time round, aren't we?
We are, but that's all right. It'll still be fun.
Yeah, it'll still be fun. Yeah, so that's cool. So I'll let you know when I've watched the first couple, because the first two are like setting it all up, aren't they?
Well, we got to post a schedule for whoever else wants to watch along.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Should we do? We could do. We could film a video announcing what we're going to do with Battlestar Galactica. Put it on both our channels.
Yeah.
And then we're both saying it, and then it gives everyone a chance to get involved. And then we'll say they're going to be separate videos.
That's
to the live stream. Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Let's do that.
All right, everybody, be on the lookout for the Battlestar Galactica watch along announcement video coming soon.
Coming soon.
You heard it first here,
guys. Yeah, you heard it first here, and second in the video we're going to make. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and if I can't believe this is going to happen, but if Mark, you're watching now, thanks so much for being our guest at the beginning, because it really was extremely special. And if you're just tuning in now and you wonder what the hell I'm talking about, go to watch the beginning, because it's amazing. And Agent Double Ice says it beautifully there.
See you, Ice.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
See you later, everyone. Thanks a million.